Chapter 1191. The sword spirits fell silent for a while before Xing explained, "It's not because the innate chaotic body can't cultivate, but because none of the cultivation methods in this world are suitable for the chaotic body. Only by finding the corresponding method can one cultivate the chaotic body. At the same time, the growth of the chaotic body is not as simple as you imagine it to be. The first step to cultivating the chaotic body is to refine the body. Only when the body is completely refined will chaotic force appear in the body." Was the gray energy that appeared in Xiao Bao's hands chaotic force? The heavenly enchantress stared at Xing. At that moment, all of her attention was on Xiao Bao. She wanted to learn about the secrets of Xiao Bao's chaotic body from Xing as soon as possible. However, when she thought about the gray energy that had appeared in Xiao Bao, she could not help but think of Jianshan. She had seen the energy that Jianshan used long ago. She could clearly sense that the energy that Jianshan used was extremely similar to the gray gas that had appeared in Xiao Bao's body. However, Xiao Bao's energy lacked the presence of destruction. Correct, that's chaotic force. However, it's only used to refine the body. It's hidden in the flesh and blood. Xiao Bao subconsciously released the chaotic force in his excitement earlier. However, Xiao Bao's chaotic body hasn't been completely refined, so all the energy he absorbs will fuse with his flesh and blood, tempering his body on its own. Only when his chaotic body is completely refined will chaotic force form in his dantian. Only then will he be able to cultivate. Xing explained in detail. The heavenly enchantress sank into her thoughts and murmured, "Looks like it's not that 10,000-year-old heavenly resources are useless to Xiao Bao, but that a single 10,000-year-old heavenly resource isn't enough to satisfy Xiao Bao's needs. Chaotic force is the highest level of energy in the universe. Condensing a strand of the chaotic body requires tremendous amounts of energy of the world. Let alone a 10,000-year-old heavenly resource. Even 10 of them are nowhere near enough. According to my observations, Xiao Bao's chaotic body hasn't even been refined to a tenth. Such a fragile body can't endure the impact of chaotic force at all," Qing Suo said sternly. Although he and Xing were sword spirits, they had lived through an extremely long period of time. They had seen many chaotic bodies during that time, so they understood the toughest bodies in the world extremely well. Alas, Xing suddenly sighed. She looked at Xiao Bao with some melancholy and said, "The innate chaotic body hasn't appeared for who knows how many years. In my memories, the innate chaotic body has only appeared 3 times in our world. Most of the chaotic bodies have been modified. It's just that the spiritual energy in this world is just far too weak. It's already extremely difficult to provide for Master's innate chaotic body, so there's nowhere near enough resources. At the same time, the further the chaotic body progresses, the more spiritual energy it requires." The heavenly enchantress was stunned. She frowned slightly. From what Xing had said, she could tell that it would be extremely difficult for Xiao Bao to increase his strength in the future. There will always be a way when the time comes. Xing, Qing Suo, I will naturally find a way to provide the energy Xiao Bao needs to increase his strength in the future. The matter at hand right now is for Xiao Bao to complete the refinement of his chaotic body as soon as possible," Jianshan said before pausing. After a moment of thought, he continued, "Xing, Qing saw Xiao Bao and I both possess the chaotic body. I wonder if I can help Xiao Bao refine his body with my chaotic body." "No," Xing rejected without any hesitation. She sternly said, "Master, Xiao Bao may possess the innate chaotic body, but his strength is still there. His body isn't tough enough, so he won't be able to endure your chaotic body at the 3rd layer. Looks like we can only use heavenly resources," Jianshan said regretfully. Just the resources he had to use to go from the 1st layer to the 3rd layer were terrifying, and the energy required to go from the 3rd layer to the 4th layer was even more terrifying. Jianshan could already imagine just how difficult it would be for Xiao Bao to increase his strength here. 2 chaotic bodies appearing in a world where the spiritual energy of the world was pitifully weak to the sword spirits was definitely a tragedy for the chaotic body. Jianshun calmed himself down. He looked at Xiao Bao lovingly and said, Xiao Bao, the name your mother gave you doesn't sound good. Can I change it for you? All right. Xiao Bao did not object and agreed in a straightforward manner. Then let me think about it. What name should I give you? Jianshun frowned as he seriously pondered. The heavenly enchantress' eyes turned cold. She arrived before Jianshun and snatched Xiao Bao away. She said, You don't need to worry about this. I've already thought of a name for Xiao Bao. He'll be called Shangwan Bao. Shangwan Bao. Why do you want him to have the surname Shangwan? Jianshun asked in some doubt. The heavenly enchantress coldly replied, I will never change Xiao Bao's surname to Changyang. After a moment of thought, Jianshun said seriously, I don't plan on changing Xiao Bao's surname to Changyang either, and using Jian as his surname doesn't sound good either. Whatever, we'll do as you say. Xiao Bao will have the surname Shangwan, but we'll have to change his name. Jianshun and the heavenly enchantress had an intense argument over Xiao Bao's name, but in the end, they finally settled on Xiao Bao's name, Shangwan Aojian. Xiao Bao seemed to be rather satisfied with the name. He constantly cheered in the heavenly enchantress' arms. Afterward, Jianshun took out 20 10,000-year-old heavenly resources from his space ring and gave them to the heavenly enchantress so that Xiao Bao could use them when he reached Foundation establishment. Most of the heavenly resources had been found by the White Tiger on Dragon Island, but now that the White Tiger had reached Class 7, the heavenly resources were basically useless to him. They were perfect for Xiao Bao. At this moment, Jianshun became stern. He sternly stared at the heavenly enchantress and said, Heavenly enchantress, there's something else I hope you can help me with. My good friend, Tai Ta, is the war god of the 100 races. His identity has already been discovered by the protector clan of Changyang Prefecture. The great elder of Changyang Prefecture, Changyang Qingyun, wants me to use the saint's fruit in exchange, or he'll announce Tai Ta's identity. At that time, the experts of the Beast God continent and the Tian Yuan continent will come to make trouble for us. In order to protect Tai Ta's identity, Senior Ruijin and I have already decided to seal the tunnel between Changyang Prefecture and the outside world. However, it'll be rather difficult for us to seal it with our current strength, so I hope you can assist us. You should deal with the trouble you've caused yourself, the heavenly enchantress said rather mercilessly. Afterward, she looked at the sword spirits and said, I hope you can pass on the cultivation methods suitable for Xiao Bao to him. Xing did not hesitate at all. After all, Xiao Bao was Jianshun's child. She directly extended a finger at Xiao Bao, and with a flash of violet light, it disappeared into Xiao Bao's forehead. Xiao Bao tilted his head and immediately fell asleep on the heavenly enchantress' shoulder. The heavenly enchantress gently glanced at the sleeping Xiao Bao. She had already achieved her objective, so there was no need for her to stay any longer. She turned into a streak of light and left with Xiao Bao, disappearing into the distant horizon very soon. Jianshun sighed at the sky after the heavenly enchantress' departure. He was both happy and worried. He was happy because he suddenly had a son, but he was worried because the heavenly enchantress had refused to deal with Changyang Prefecture with them. This would increase the pressure on them this time. I can't leak information about my son before I deal with Tai Ta, or it'll probably cause a lot of trouble for Xiao Bao. Even the heavenly enchantress might be affected, Jianshun thought to himself. He knew that if information about Tai Ta was leaked and he did not hand Tai Ta over, the experts of the Beast God continent and the Tian Yuan continent would probably do everything they could to take revenge on his family and friends, especially those close to him. As a result, he could not let too many people know about Xiao Bao's identity. I never thought that she would be the one to benefit the most from absorbing the supreme Yin force and supreme Yang force from the Yin-Yang Saint Rock. Qing Suo murmured to himself. His face shone with a strange light. Xing sighed as well. The mother of the innate chaotic body will be blessed by the heavens. She will benefit immensely from giving birth to the chaotic body. Not only will her strength increase rapidly, but her potential is limitless as well. If she can continue down this path, she'll definitely become an immortal emperor in the future and the strongest among all immortal emperors. Jianshun returned to Changyang Prefecture and did not leak information about Xiao Bao. However, When Ruijin learned that the heavenly enchantress had refused to help them deal with Chanyang Prefecture, he obviously felt extremely regretful. We can't delay the sealing of Chanyang Prefecture any longer. We've already finished our preparations, so let's set off immediately, Ruijin said sternly. They had already made careful arrangements for what they would do next. Afterward, Jianshun, Ruijin, Honglian, and Yu Yu set off for the protector clan of Chanyang Prefecture. Yu Yu also stowed away the Bright Moon Divine Hall that hovered above Lore City. The Bright Moon Divine Hall was their most powerful defense against Chanyang Prefecture. Chapter 1192. In a quiet mountain range, from time to time, low and loud roars of magical beasts could be heard. Some magical beasts were even killing each other in the forest. The battle was very fierce. The loud roars and mournful screams spread far and wide. Some of the weaker magical beasts were so scared that they shrunk their necks and hid in their caves, not daring to come out. High up in the sky, a large group of second-grade and third-grade vultures were circling around. Their cold and emotionless eyes continuously scanned the area below. Once they found a suitable target, they would immediately swarm over and turn the magical beasts into delicious food in their mouths. Although the individual strength of these vultures was lacking, they had the advantage in numbers. There were several hundred of them, and even Class 4 magical beasts would become their food. A loud cry rang out from the distance. A small black death suddenly appeared on the horizon, quickly flying towards the group of vultures. The group of vultures immediately became uneasy. They scrambled to escape in all directions, as if they had encountered something terrifying that made them feel fear. The black dot rapidly grew in size. It was a flying magical beast with the body of a snake, 4 wings, and a pair of sharp claws under its abdomen. It dove into the flock of vultures and grabbed a vulture with its mouth. Its sharp claws also grabbed 1 vulture each. The sharp claws pierced through the vulture's body, and the intense pain caused the vulture to involuntarily let out a mournful cry. Several hundred vultures fled in all directions. At the same time, they shot out arrows condensed from energy from their mouths. It quickly shot towards the 4-winged demonic beast. The 4-winged magical beast did not dodge at all. Its bright eyes were filled with mockery as it used its body to endure the most powerful attacks from the vultures. Ding, ding, ding. A series of metallic sounds rang out. The seemingly inconspicuous black feathers on the 4-winged magical beast were actually extremely tough. The most powerful attacks from the vultures did not pose any threat to it at all. This 4-winged magical beast had already reached the 5th rank. The difference between the 5th rank and the 4th rank was like a watershed. Hundreds of 2nd and 3rd rank vultures could indeed easily kill a 4th rank magical beast, but they couldn't do anything to a 5th rank magical beast. The 4-winged magical beast flapped its wings. It had a vulture in its mouth and 2 vultures in its claws that were still struggling violently. Its entire body transformed into a ray of black light as it charged towards the group of vultures. It spread its wings, and those steel-like wings made contact with the vultures' bodies. All of the vultures' bodies were cut in half, and their blood dyed the sky. In just a few seconds, over 20 vultures had died to the 4-winged magical beast. At this moment, the 4-winged magical beast stopped chasing after the other vultures. It glanced at the fleeing vultures with an icy gaze, filled with a sliver of disdain in a very human-like manner. This 4-winged magical beast seemed to have sensed something. A glint flashed in its human-like eyes. It raised its head and stared at a certain place in the sky for a while. Soon after, it flapped its wings, and its body suddenly descended. It quickly disappeared into the dense forest. Several hundred meters in the sky, the space there suddenly began to twist violently. Afterwards, the space was ripped open, and a colorful space gate stabilized in just a few seconds. Ruijin, Honglian, Jianshun, and Yu Yu emerged from it one after another. After the 4 of them emerged, the space gate rapidly vanished as well, allowing the space there to return to normal. Ruijin, Honglian, Yu Yu, and Jianshun all stared at the space before them. The world gate between the Protector clan, Changyang Prefecture, and the outside world was hidden 100 meters in front of them. Although the world gate was hidden extremely well, such that no one could see through it at all, its only flaw was that its location could not be changed. At this moment, Ruijin seemed to sense something. A strange light appeared in his eyes as he turned his head to stare at the forest below. His calm gaze pierced through the cover of the forest below, clearly seeing what was hidden below. I never thought that I'd actually find a winged dragon here. It even has a sliver of the power of my dragon bloodline flowing through it, Ruijin said in surprise. This was definitely an extremely surprising matter to him. The dense forest below began to shake slightly. The four-winged magical beast that had been hiding below slowly flew up. It was very intelligent, and it knew that Ruijin had discovered it. As such, it did not continue to hide. The four-winged magical beast did not move quickly. Its head was very low as it flew over to Ruijin at a steady pace. It prostrated itself on the ground as the viciousness in its eyes completely vanished, replaced by respect. The four-winged magical beast was a winged dragon that possessed a sliver of dragon bloodline. Although it was not pure, it was still a close relative of the dragon clan. As a result, it was extremely sensitive to the presence of the emperor of the dragon clan. Now that the dragon clan had already vanished, Ruijin immediately felt particularly close to the winged dragon when he saw it here. He asked, "Are there any other members of the dragon clan apart from you?" The winged dragon could clearly hear Ruijin's words. It immediately shook its head and produced a series of deep growls at the same time. Ruijin gently sighed as a sliver of disappointment appeared in his eyes. After a moment of thought, he said to the winged dragon, "A great battle is about to erupt here. Leave immediately so that you won't be affected." The winged dragon respectfully bowed to Ruijin and left. Afterwards, it flapped its four metal wings and immediately shot off into the distance as a blur. It moved extremely quickly. After the winged dragon left, Ruijin looked back at the world gate in Changyang Prefecture. He said with a deep voice, "I'll immediately use the supreme secret technique of the Dragon Clan to seal up this space. Prepare yourselves. As I use the seal, there will be a huge ripple of energy. It'll definitely attract the attention of the people inside. At that time, you must enter the Protector clans to fight. You can't clash with them outside." Honglian, Jianshun, and Yu sternly nodded. Soon after, flames shot into the sky, and the temperature in the surroundings began to rapidly rise. The 9 refined Godfire feathers and scorching Godfire hairpin had already appeared on Honglian. With a flip of his hand, Jianshun pulled out the Emperor armament from his space ring. He gripped it tightly in his hand as the chaotic Niden in his dantian constantly surged with chaotic force, filling every inch of his body in a single moment. The palm-sized bright moon divine hall was also held in Sima Yu's hands. Then, she gently tossed it into the air. The bright moon divine hall grew with the wind. In the blink of an eye, it became tens of meters long. The tightly shut door slowly opened. Immediately, a ray of bright moonlight shone out from the door. The moonlight enveloped Sima Yu's body and then sucked her into the door. Ruijin also pulled out the 9-dragon slaying grass from his space ring. Every single stalk was as tall as an adult, but they seemed extremely ordinary. They seemed like ordinary weeds, without anything special about them. They were all dragon slaying grass that had lived for over 1 million years. Vast amounts of pure vital energies were hidden within them. But just like the saint's fruit, they had already returned to their original state. The 9 stalks of dragon slaying grass formed a formation in the air. Ruijin bit his finger and dripped 9 droplets of golden blood onto the dragon slaying grass. As soon as the blood came in contact with the dragon slaying grass, it was immediately absorbed by the dragon slaying grass. The green leaves of the dragon slaying grass slowly began to turn golden as well. Extremely pure vital energies radiated from them. The vital energies hidden within seemed to have been activated by the droplet of blood. Ruijin did not stop at all. He immediately formed hand seals and used a secret technique of the dragon clan to activate all the vital energies within the dragon slaying grass. Immediately, a tremendous amount of vital energies that even surprised Jianshan leaked out from the 9 stalks of dragon slaying grass. After 1,000,000 years of accumulation, no one could predict just how vast the vital energies within the dragon slaying grass were. A huge and majestic divine hall stood silently on the floating piece of land within the protector clan of Chanyang Prefecture. Chanyang Qing Yun paced back and forth in an extremely luxurious room with a heavy heart. His face was filled with anxiety and eagerness. He was nowhere near as composed as he usually was. In the past few days, all Chanyang Qing Yun thought about was the saint's fruit. He no longer cared about the departure of Chanyang Zhu Xiao and the others. Nothing was more important than him becoming the Holy Emperor. Although the strength of Chanyang Prefecture had plummeted with the departure of Chanyang Zhu Xiao and the others, Chanyang Qing Yun still remained indifferent. This was because the Chanyang Prefecture was a protector clan. Even though it had been reduced to the weakest of the 10 protector clans, its status was still not something that could be replaced by any other organization. The heritage of the protector clans was so great that it could not be compared to any other ancient clan. At this moment, Chanyang Qing Yinfeng walked in from outside. His complexion was ruddy, and he was brimming with energy. He was in extremely good condition. He had been injured by Chanyang Zhu Yunxiao's founding god's fist back then, but he had completely recovered from his injuries with the assistance of the medicines from Chanyang Prefecture. Qing Yun, do you think Jianshan will hand over the saint's fruit for the war god of the 100 races? Chanyang Qing Yinfeng asked. Chanyang Qing Yinfeng sank into his thoughts. After a moment of thought, he said, I've specially investigated Jianshan over the past few days. According to what I know, he's a person who values friendship. He definitely won't ignore the safety of his friends for his own benefits. If the information about him is correct, he'll definitely hand over the saint's fruit obediently, because he knows that the war god will die if he doesn't. Chanyang Qing Yinfeng remained silent for a while before sternly saying, Qing Yun, you should know what the appearance of the war god of the 100 races means to us. Our Tian Yuan continent no longer has a sovereign like in ancient times. If we let the war god of the 100 races go for the saint's fruit, he'll definitely be a disaster for our Tian Yuan continent once he matures. Not to mention that we're using him to threaten Jianshan for the saint's fruit. In the future, our Chanyang clan will definitely be his first target for vengeance once he matures. Chanyang Qing Yun sinisterly smiled with that. He said, Yinfeng, your worries are completely unnecessary because the war god has no chance of becoming a sovereign. Chanyang Qing Yinfeng was stunned, but he understood very soon. He evilly smiled. So you're saying that you plan on leaking the war god's identity as soon as you obtain the saint's fruit? That's right. The war god will definitely become a sovereign in the future. Even if I use the saint's fruit to break through to the holy emperor level, I'll still be far from being his opponent. How can I let such a powerful enemy grow? Chanyang Qing Yun sneered. Then I don't have to worry. Chanyang Qing Yun smiled. At this moment, Chanyang Qing Yun's face changed. He heavily said, Oh no, someone wants to attack our Chanyang Prefecture. With that, Chanyang Qing Yun vanished. When he reappeared, he was outside the divine hall. At the same time, the heavy sound of a bell rang out, spreading through the entire Chanyang Prefecture. It was the sound of the bell of prime clarity. It was filled with a sense of desolation, like the rumbling of a war drum. The quiet Chanyang Prefecture immediately became lively with the sound of the bell. More and more people emerged from their houses or flew over from the various mountains on the floating continent. The bell of prime clarity could produce 2 sounds. The first was peaceful, used to welcome important guests. The second sound was soul-stirring. It was filled with a sense of desolation. It was a warning for battle. The 5 remaining great elders of Chanyang Prefecture stood side by side before the divine hall. They were all stern. Chapter 1193. Outside the world gate of Chanyang Prefecture, the 9 stalks of dragon's saliva floated in the air in a formation. The vast amount of essence hidden within them had been completely activated, causing each stalk to shine with a dazzling golden light. Vast amounts of essence pulsed in and out. Ruijin was stern. He formed a seal with his hands and constantly changed the seals, as if he had established an extremely obscure and mysterious connection with the 9 stalks of dragon saliva. Honglian, Jianshun, and Yu were all stern as they stared at the space in front of them. The space that the 3 of them were staring at suddenly began to distort violently. Afterwards, the space suddenly cracked open, forming a 100-meter-tall space gate. This was the world gate of Chanyang Prefecture. It was the only path to the outside world. The size of the world gate could be changed at will, but 100 meters was its limit. Through the world gate, they could clearly see what was inside. It was a world that seemed similar to the outside world, but it was completely different. There were verdant mountains and clear waters in there. The scenery was so beautiful that it could not be compared to the outside world. In particular, the dense energy of the world, there was countless times more powerful than the outside world. If they cultivated in a miniature world like this, they would definitely be able to achieve twice the results with half the effort. A tremendous presence radiated from the world gate. Unconcealable fury was present within. With Chanyang Qingyan at the lead, several dozen experts stood in the world gate. Their presences seemed to have fused together, charging out like a primordial beast. Chanyang Qingyan coldly glanced past Jianshin and the others before looking at Jianshin in the end. He said with a deep voice, "Jianshin, state your intentions." Jianshin, Honglian, and Yu looked at each other. As if they could read each other's minds, the 3 of them actually charged into the world gate at the same time. Honglian charged at the very front. Her body burned with flames, making her seem like a god of fire. Before she had even approached the world gate, a great sea of fire had drifted out from her body, quickly sweeping toward the people of Chanyang Prefecture. The 5 great elders of Chanyang Prefecture immediately rejoiced inside when they saw Honglian and the others recklessly charge into the miniature world of the Protector clan. They sneered mockingly. The 5 of them knew Honglian's strength. She was a holy emperor at great perfection, and her original form was a scorching divine phoenix. Coupled with the 2 powerful origin energy weapons, Honglian possessed the right to challenge holy emperors. Even if she faced a holy emperor, she would be undefeatable. If they were outside, the 5 great elders of Chanyang Prefecture would not be able to do anything to Honglian even if they worked together. But it was a different story inside the Protector clan. The 5 great elders of Chanyang Prefecture and the several dozen saint rulers behind them all retreated at the same time. They did not stop Honglian, nor did they resist the sea of fire that drifted over. They could only watch as the terrifyingly hot sea of fire entered the Protector clan. The 5 great elders of Chanyang Prefecture all smiled mysteriously, as if they were welcoming the arrival of Honglian and the others. Although the battle in the miniature world would cause great destruction, they possessed an absolute advantage in the miniature world. Honglian and Jianshan charged into the miniature world one after another. The bright moon divine hall that Yu controlled had shrunk slightly as well. It followed closely behind the 2 of them. "Close the world gate," Chanyang Qingyun said to the saint rulers behind him through a communication technique. A vast and surging energy surged out from his body, enveloping him. The energy rapidly shrank, condensing into a set of energy armor on him very soon. The 4 other great elders all condensed their own sets of armor as well, adding another layer of protection. Afterward, Chanyang Qingyan and Chanyang Yuanwuji, who was only second to him, dealt with Honglian. Chanyang Qingyan Feng and Chanyang Qingjuri dealt with Jianshan, and Chanyang Yuanjua dealt with Yu in the Bright Moon Divine Hall. The battle between Honglian and Jianshan was very intense. Flames danced in the surroundings as sword qi crisscrossed. Terrifying ripples of energy turned into terrifying shockwaves, causing space to violently tremble and mountains to collapse. Even the floating continent in the distance violently trembled, as if an earthquake had occurred. Yu's battle was much quieter. Yu stood at the entrance of the Bright Moon Divine Hall, with the moon god's scepter in her hand. A hazy layer of moonlight fell from the ceiling, protecting her. Her opponent, Changyang Yuan Zhenghua, knew that the weak-looking girl possessed unbelievable power. Even Changyang Qingyun had been heavily injured by her, so he did not dare to approach her. Instead, he stood there with his sword and sent out strands of powerful sword qi. However, the strands of sword qi were shattered as soon as they came in contact with a thin layer of moonlight. They were unable to even make the barrier tremble. Yu Yu stood quietly at the entrance of the bright, moon divine hall. She only stared in Jinshin's direction with her large, beautiful eyes. She did not even glance at Changyang Yuan Zhenghua, who constantly sent out sword qi in an attempt to injure her. Changyang Yuan Zhenghua's face paled and became more and more sunken. He was one of the great elders of Changyang Prefecture, a supreme expert who had reached the level of Holy Emperor, yet he had actually been ignored by a girl whose strength he did not take seriously at all. Moreover, his sword qi was unable to injure her at all, which made him furious. He felt extremely frustrated, but there was nothing he could do. The Saint rulers who had not been involved in the battle all used secret techniques to close the world gate. They wanted to trap Jinshin's group inside. The world gate, that was 100 meters wide, began to slowly close up. However, at this moment, the bright moon divine hall began to fly backwards. It became stuck in the closing world gate, preventing it from closing up. The expressions of the Saint rulers behind changed. The bright moon divine hall was extremely tough. Although the world gate had closed up, it was unable to do anything to the bright moon divine hall. For a moment, the bright moon divine hall and the world gate could only remain like that. The world gate could not be closed, and the bright moon divine hall could not be moved. Go awaken the Emperor armament. An older Saint ruler called out before leading a few other Saint rulers toward the forbidden grounds in the back mountains. Jinshin and Honglian fought an extremely intense battle against the 4 great elders of Changyang Prefecture. Every time they clashed, they possessed devastating might, causing the entire miniature world to violently tremble. Pitch-black spatial cracks constantly appeared, approaching the brink of collapse. Chapter 1194. Several Saint rulers sat in a circle around the Emperor armament in the forbidden grounds of the back mountains of Changyang Prefecture. All of them had their eyes closed as they formed seals with their hands. They were using a secret technique to awaken the Emperor armament. The battle in the distance became more and more intense. The surging ripples of energy wreaked havoc in the miniature world as terrifying shockwaves, even affecting the forbidden grounds slightly. However, this did not affect their determination to awaken the Emperor armament at all. As they all spat out a mouthful of essence blood onto the Emperor armament, it began to gently tremble before becoming even more violent. A powerful layer of light appeared, surrounding the 30-meter-long Emperor armament as it slowly rose from the ground, rising into the sky. Suddenly, an extremely vast sword qi radiated from the Emperor armament. It was earth-shaking and peerless. It was so great that even the Holy Emperor at great perfection could not compare to it. The Saint rulers who had awakened the Emperor armament were all ghastly pale. They all collapsed on the ground, as if they had used up all their strength. However, they all smiled from success. They were filled with confidence in the Emperor armament. They were certain that as long as the Emperor armament was awakened, there was nothing that their protector clan could not deal with in the world. The Emperor armament hovered in the air. Without anyone controlling it, it shot toward Honglian as a streak of light. Once the Emperor armament was awakened in the protector clan, it would automatically kill all targets that were hostile. Although it was not as powerful as when it was controlled by someone, it could not be underestimated. Honglian dealt with Changyang Qingyun and Changyang Yuan Wuji's fierce attacks with ease. She did not panic at all when the Emperor armament shot toward her. With a flip of her hand, 3 thumb-sized, fiery red phoenixes appeared in her hand. She gently tossed them, and the 3 phoenixes immediately turned into 3 10-meter-long phoenixes that burned with flames. Their bodies were illusory, condensed from flames. 3 phoenixes condensed from flames unfurled their wings and charged toward Chanyang Yuan Wuji under Hong Lian's control. Soon afterward, another 5 bright red feathers appeared in Hong Lian's hand. They flickered with a blood-red light. They were not real phoenix feathers, but something she had refined using special materials over the years. The 5 feathers flew out from Hong Lian's hand, leaving behind 5 scarlet streaks of flame in the air. As they flew, they rapidly expanded, becoming huge feathers that were several dozen meters long in the end. They were enveloped by a layer of roaring flames, trapping Changyang Qingyun in a formation that seemed simple but contained the mysteries of the world. When the formation was activated, the space within quickly blurred. Changyang Qingyun vanished as well, having been sucked into the formation. The formation formed from the 5 feathers violently trembled as sparks scattered. Trapped within, Changyang Qingyun did his best to break free. However, the formation was one of the most powerful formations within the Divine Flame Phoenix clan. Although he was unable to unleash its full power due to a lack of materials, it was still able to keep Changyang Qingyun busy for a while. The Emperor armament shot over like a hot knife through butter. Having broken free from the entanglement of Changyang Yuan Zhenghua and Changyang Qingyun, the 2 strongest experts in Changyang Prefecture, Hong Lian had also freed herself up to control the Scorching Godfire hairpin to block the Emperor armament's attack. The Scorching Godfire hairpin gave off a faint presence of origin energy. It collided with the Emperor armament under a layer of scorching white flames. With a deafening boom, an extremely powerful ripple of energy erupted, forming a storm of destruction. The mountains in a radius of 10 kilometers immediately collapsed, turning into rolling rocks and dust that drifted through the air. The mountains 10 kilometers away collapsed as well. Space trembled violently, twisting and distorting. Pitch-black space cracks appeared, looking like ferocious ghosts opening their ghastly mouths, swallowing everything that came close to their mouths. The 18 divine palaces in the sky had completely transformed from phantoms into solid entities. Every single one of them gave off an immortal divine glow. Streams of powerful and mysterious energy surged out of the divine palaces, fusing into the space to stabilize it. The clash between the Scorching Godfire hairpin and the Emperor armament was equivalent to a clash between 2 holy Emperor experts. If it were not for the 18 divine halls, the miniature world probably would have collapsed long ago. On the other side, Jianshan was also engaged in an intense battle with the 2 great elders of Changyang Prefecture. At the same time, he paid attention to Zhan Kuang on Hong Lian's side. Changyang Qingjuri was the weakest of his opponents, so he became Jianshan's main target. A few slashes appeared on Changyang Qingjuri as they clashed for a while. Blood dyed his luxurious white robes red. If it were not for Changyang Qingyunfeng keeping Jianshan busy at a crucial moment, Changyang Qingjuri's injuries would have been even more severe. Enter the 18 divine halls and activate the encirclement. An old and heavy voice rang out from behind. Immediately, 18 saint rulers flew into the air, heading for the divine halls. The 18 experts entered the 18 divine halls. At that moment, the inanimate divine halls seemed to possess souls. They possessed an indescribable intelligence and began to move. All 18 divine halls stacked on top of each other, slowly falling toward Hong Lian's head. Hong Lian's expression changed. She raised her head high and glared at the divine halls that were slowly falling toward her. Her beautiful face finally became stern because she had suddenly discovered that she was unable to move. As the divine halls fell from above, she seemed to have been immobilized. No matter how hard she tried, she was unable to break free. This is spatial force. The mysteries it contains far surpass the comprehension of regular holy emperors. This is something that only a peak holy emperor, or even someone who has surpassed the holy emperor, can grasp. Even regular holy emperors would struggle to break free in a short amount of time after being immobilized. Hong Lian was extremely stern. Hong Lian's body had been immobilized. As the divine halls drew closer and closer to her, even the energy in her body was affected, becoming rather difficult to control. Boom! With a great sound, the Emperor armament struck Hong Lian while she was immobilized. Hong Lian's origin energy treasure, the 9 refined Godfire feather, immediately began to emit a scorching white light, nullifying the Emperor armament's attack. Hong Lian would have been blown away if it were any other time, but she had been immobilized. She could not move at all, so the terrifying force from the Emperor armament could not be nullified, causing her to suffer even more damage. Hong Lian became rather pale. Although the Emperor armament was unable to break through the 9 refined Godfire feathers protection, the powerful force still caused her organs to violently shake. Chapter 1195. Hong Lian struggled as hard as she could. The flames on her body had already turned from red to white, but no matter how hard she tried, it was to no avail. She was unable to break free from the invisible binding force around her body. The encirclement formation could even trap holy emperors for 4 whole hours. Although Hong Lian possessed battle prowess on par with the Holy Emperor through the Origin Energy Treasure, her personal strength was still at the great perfection of the Holy Emperor. Her comprehension of the mysteries of the world was like an insurmountable chasm compared to the Holy Emperor, so she was unable to do anything about the encirclement formation. Up ahead, the surging sword Qi attacked once again. The Emperor armament shot toward Hong Lian as a resplendent streak of light. It moved as fast as lightning. The light in Hong Lian's eyes pulsed. Her body was bound, but her mind was not affected. She used her mind to control the scorching Godfire hairpin to collide with the Emperor armament, stopping the attack 100 meters away. With a boom, the Emperor armament and the scorching Godfire hairpin were both knocked away by the great force of the impact. Swish! The scorching Godfire hairpin was immediately controlled by Hong Lian. Ignoring the God artifact, it whistled towards the 18 divine halls in the sky with deep white flames. The space below the celestial hall rippled like water. When the scorching Godfire hairpin was 10 meters away from the celestial hall, it was unable to advance any further. Hong Lian's mind fused with the hairpin, so she could sense it even more clearly. She found that the hairpin seemed to have collided with a ball of soft, elastic cotton. No matter how powerful it was unable to break free. Hong Lian shivered inside. She stared at the divine halls with shining eyes and said with a deep voice, "This is another use of spatial force. I never thought that the 18 divine halls would have such a wondrous ability when stacked together. Probably even the Holy Emperor of the humans and the Holy Emperor of the magical beasts haven't grasped this ability." Hong Lian gained a completely new understanding of the heritage of the 10 Protector clans. The fact that the Protector clans could stand for 1,000,000 years on the Tianyuan continent obviously meant that they were extraordinary. Their heritage was enough to fend off the attacks of the Holy Emperor. Yu Yu panicked inside the Bright Moon Divine Hall when she saw that Hong Lian was in trouble. Pure moonlight force began to surge from the Moon God scepter in her hand. She wanted to use the moonlight force within the scepter to assist Hong Lian. "My disciple, don't panic. Her armor is filled with origin energy, so it's very tough. She'll be fine in a short amount of time. The power within the Moon God scepter can only be used once. You can't waste it like this." Fairy Haoyue's gentle voice rang out in Yu Yu's head. The moonlight force from the scepter rapidly dimmed, having been secretly controlled by Fairy Haoyue. "Master, but Senior Hong Lian is already injured. If this continues, it'll only be worse for Senior Hong Lian," Yu Yu said worriedly. Yu Yu was worried. Although she did not have a close relationship with Hong Lian, the latter had still helped the Jianshun through many difficulties. As a result, Yu Yu always felt grateful to Hong Lian. She's a magical beast, and no ordinary magical beast. Her body is so tough that humans can't compare to it. These injuries won't affect her at all. "My disciple, just stay here and watch. This will be beneficial to your future cultivation. If you really come across any danger, there'll obviously be people who will step in." Fairy Haoyue's voice was calm and cold. Hong Lian was firmly suppressed by the encirclement of the 18 divine halls. Although the encirclement could restrain the Holy Emperor, it was unable to attack at all. Hong Lian saw that the scorching godfire heavenly hairpin was useless against the encirclement, so she immediately gave up on the idea of forcefully breaking through. She focused on controlling the hairpin to block the attacks from the Emperor armament. A turbulent ripple of energy appeared nearby. Chanyang Qingyun had already broken out of the formation. He was in a rather horrible shape. His silver-white hair had become slightly wrinkled in the flames, while his snow-white robes had become slightly black. He was enraged, and his face was ashen. He swept his sharp gaze and immediately found Hong Lian, who was bound by the encirclement formation. He immediately let out a roar and charged toward Hong Lian. A tremendous pressure from the air crushed down. Chanyang Qingyun used a Saint-tier battle skill with ease. He did not need to charge it up at all. Devastating energy rapidly gathered in his hand and viciously struck Hong Lian's back. Bang! With a heavy sound, Hong Lian's scorching godfire heavenly hairpin blocked the Emperor armament. She was unable to dodge Chanyang Qingyun's Saint-tier battle skill as she was trapped, so she took the attack firmly. Hong Lian swayed slightly, but she remained immobile. Chanyang Qingyun, on the other hand, was constantly pushed back by the terrifying ripples of energy. You think you can harm me with just you? You're dreaming. Hong Lian sneered as her mocking voice rang out clearly in Chanyang Qingyun's ears. Chanyang Qingyun's Saint-tier battle skill was unable to harm Hong Lian, who was protected by the 9 refined godfire feather at great perfection. Chanyang Qingyun's face became extremely sunken. He was the greatest expert of the Protector clan in Chanyang Prefecture. He possessed a great status, yet he was mocked by Hong Lian. This was an extremely great humiliation to him. Chanyang Qingyun furiously roared out. He struck out with lightning speed, destroying the 3 phoenixes that were entangled with Chanyang Yuan Wuji, saving him. Afterward, he aggressively charged toward Jianshan as cold, killing intent flickered in his eyes. At this moment, Jianshan just happened to stab through Chanyang Qingjuri's chest. Blood dripped from the tip of the sword as a strand of destructive chaotic force invaded Chanyang Qingjuri's body. Like a wild horse, it rampaged through his body, destroying his vitality. Chanyang Qingjuri became sheet white in a single moment. He vomited a large mouthful of blood, which turned into a bloody mist in the air. He had suffered a fatal injury. Jianshan immediately withdrew the Emperor armament from Chanyang Qingjuri's body and used the illusory flash. He left behind an afterimage as he retreated with lightning speed, entering the bright Moon Divine Hall in the blink of an eye. He was confident, but he did not believe he was Chanyang Qingyun's opponent. Whether it was Jianshan's reactions or movements, they were extremely fast. Chanyang Qingyun could only watch as Jianshan hid in the bright Moon Divine Hall. Even though he hated Jianshan to the core, there was nothing he could do about the bright Moon Divine Hall. Juri immediately returned to the Ancestral Hall to heal. Yinfeng, Wuji, the 3 of us will control the Emperor armament together, Chanyang Qingyun coldly said. Chapter 1196. The 3 of them arrived below the huge hilt of the Emperor armament at the same time. Their hands were enveloped by a layer of surging saint force as they touched the hilt. The saint force within them surged like a river, endlessly pouring into the Emperor armament. The Emperor armament immediately began to shine brightly after receiving the saint force from the 3 Holy Emperor experts. The sword chi became even sharper, causing the space that had been reinforced by the 18 divine halls to tremble slightly. Its power was rapidly increasing. Although the Emperor armament could still display great power when no one was controlling it, its power would be far greater than when no one was controlling it. Hong Lian sternly stared at the Emperor armament that was rapidly growing stronger. The scorching godfire hairpin had already returned to her hand, while the pure energy of fire within her constantly poured into the origin energy treasure. Now that her body had been restrained, she had become a live target. Hong Lian felt quite the pressure when she had to face the Emperor armament of the Protector clan in such a state. Jianshan and Yu stood side by side at the entrance of the bright Moon Divine Hall. A bright barrier of light fell from the ceiling, separating the 2 of them from the outside world like a natural barrier. The barriers seemed thin, but the power it hid was unbelievably great. Even the Emperor armament struggled to break through it. Jianshun clenched his fists tightly. He also felt a sliver of worry for Honglian. He did not doubt Honglian's strength at all, but Honglian was currently blocking the Emperor armament while her body was restrained, so it would be difficult for her to display her full strength. Now, this was the main battlefield between Honglian and the Emperor armament. Jianshun could no longer interfere. He did not have the protection of the Origin Energy Treasure, so he could not even withstand a single attack from the Emperor armament. Even if he released Taita from the artifact space, it would be useless. The Bright Moon Divine Hall had to remain here to prevent the World Gate from closing, so it could not move. Obviously, it could not help Honglian. Boom! With a deafening boom, the scorching Godfire hairpin collided with the three Emperor armaments. A devastating shockwave of energy erupted, causing the towering mountains in the distance to collapse while the floating continent became covered in cracks. The environment of the miniature world had suffered a devastating blow. The scorching Godfire hairpin was blown away while the Emperor armament retreated several hundred meters as well. Honglian trembled as her face paled slightly. The Emperor armament had indeed become much more powerful under the control of Changyang Qingyun, and Heiyu. It had surpassed the level of regular Holy Emperor armaments, but she was currently suppressed by the encirclement of the encirclement. Not only was she immobilized, but she could only use 80% of her strength as well. Blocking the attacks of the Emperor armament had become rather difficult for her. They'll suffer a backlash from controlling the Emperor armament. I just need to keep them busy, and they'll naturally be unable to last much longer. Honglian thought before doing her best to control the scorching Godfire hairpin to block the attacks of the Emperor armament. In the blink of an eye, the scorching Godfire hairpin had clashed with the Emperor armament over 10 times. During that time, the Emperor armament struck Honglian a few times. Although it could not penetrate the 9 refined Godfire feathers, the powerful force still ruptured Honglian's organs. Blood oozed from the corner of her mouth. The Origin Energy Treasure is just too powerful. If this continues, we'll die from the backlash before we can even destroy it, Changyang Qingyunfeng said with a heavy voice. He was extremely stern. We can't continue like this. It'll only be bad for us. The Emperor armament will begin to suffer a backlash before long, Changyang Wuji said in a worried tone. Changyang Yuan Wuji said in a panic. The Emperor armament was very powerful, but they could not control it for too long. Changyang Qingyunshin understood this as well. His face became uneasy. If they could not chase away the invaders today, their Changyang prefecture would lose all its dignity. However, what he could not accept was that the disaster that had befallen Changyang prefecture today was all because of Jianshun. The saint's fruit must be on Jianshun. It's impossible for him to leave something so valuable with someone else. Since he's brought such a great disaster to our Changyang prefecture today, we can't let him leave. We have to make him die here. Changyang Qingyunshin calculated. He made up his mind very quickly and said with a sunken face, "Activate the Origin Formation." What? The Origin Formation? Changyang Qingyunfeng was shocked. It's already been several tens of thousands of years since we've used the Origin Formation in Changyang Prefecture. According to the records, although the Origin Formation is extremely powerful and can even kill peak Holy Emperor experts, the cost of activating it is just far too great. It'll suck away all the energy of the world in this miniature world, Changyang Yuan Wuji said with a rather pale face. The enemy before us is even more difficult to deal with than regular Holy Emperor experts. We can't find anything else that can threaten her apart from the Origin Formation, and once she breaks free from the encirclement of the encirclement, who will be her opponent? Changyang Qingyunfeng said. Changyang Qingyunfeng and Changyang Yuan Wuji looked at each other and nodded at the same time. They immediately gave up on controlling the Emperor armament and allowed it to attack Honglian on its own. The three of them hovered in the air as they formed the same seal with their hands. Activating the Origin Formation required a process. At the same time, it required their energy as a primer. The three of them used their own energy to activate the formation, which would greatly shorten the time required. A few seconds later, the entire miniature world of Chanyang Prefecture began to gently tremble. The dense energy of the world drifting in the air vanished at an unbelievable rate. A faint speck of golden light suddenly appeared in the air. The golden light was like golden threads, forming a complicated and huge diagram in the air. It filled the entire space. The origin formation was one of Chanyang Prefecture's most powerful trump cards. The entire formation was hidden in the air and would only appear when it was activated. As soon as the origin formation appeared, it rapidly absorbed the energy of the world, causing the golden light to become brighter and brighter, more and more dazzling. The origin formation was extremely large. From afar, it seemed like an extremely huge spiderweb. The golden threads intertwined, connecting the 360 points of the formation. All of the points of the formation were connected to the hexagram at the very center of the origin formation. I'll control the encirclement formation and cooperate with you. A clear voice rang out. A clear voice rang out. Chanyang Yuan Zhenghua stood above the highest divine hall as 18 stone tablets revolve around him. Through the 18 stone tablets, he could control all 18 divine halls. Chanyang Qing Yun, Chanyang Qing Yun Feng, and Chanyang Yuan Wuji glanced at Chanyang Yuan Zhenghua with determined gazes. Afterward, the three of them flew to the hexagram at the center of the origin formation. This was the core that controlled the origin formation. The origin formation began to slowly revolve. Immediately, an extremely terrifying presence permeated the surroundings. Mixed within it was a powerful might that could destroy the world. It was enough to strike fear into people's hearts. Holian's face drastically changed. The power of the origin formation was actually several times more terrifying than the most powerful killing formation recorded in her inherited memories. This made her feel extremely shocked. In a completely sealed room on the highest floor of the bright Moon Divine Hall, Fairy Haoyue sat on a piece of jade with her eyes closed. Even though her body was illusory, it was still possible to clearly see her otherworldly beauty and cold arrogance. Suddenly, Fairy Haoyue's eyes snapped open. Her gaze seemed to be able to pierce through the divine hall, allowing her to clearly see what was outside. This is an origin formation. Strange. Why would an origin formation appear here? It doesn't belong to this world. Fairy Haoyue was extremely surprised. One of the four great protectors of the Ice Goddess Hall, Shui Yunlan, just happens to be in this generation. Did this origin formation come from her? Fairy Haoyue murmured to herself. An origin formation was only a low-tier formation in her eyes, but she could not help but think deeply when such a formation appeared here. At the same time, Guihai Yidao suddenly opened his eyes as he cultivated on the wave-breaking blade in the forbidden ground at the back of the Tyrant's Blade School's miniature world. His gaze was as deep as the vast starry sky, as if he could see what was happening in Chanyang Prefecture from a great distance away. Chanyang Prefecture has actually activated an origin formation. However, that beast has a set of armor and weapons that have been refined by origin energy from who knows where. Even regular holy emperors can't touch her. If Chanyang Prefecture doesn't use an origin formation, they really can't do anything to her. Guihai Yidao muttered to himself as he sat on the wave-breaking blade. Guihai Yidao muttered to himself as he sat on the tattered ground. Even though he was extremely far away, he clearly knew what had happened in the Chanyang clan. An extremely powerful energy has already gathered in the righteous Yang sword. It's much more powerful than my wave-breaking blade. Looks like there have been more holy emperor experts in Chanyang Prefecture in the past few years than my Tyrant's Blade School. Yang Lai, I wonder when you'll be able to return. Guihai Yidao was melancholic as he reminisced about the past. Within Chanyang Prefecture, to activate the origin formation, we still need the assistance of 360 people. All clansmen at Heaven Saint Master and above go to the cores of the origin formation. Chanyang Qing Yun's loud and dignified voice rang through the entire miniature world. Immediately, A group of clansmen with strength, ranging from heaven saint masters to saint rulers, flew toward the 360 formation cores. Once they entered the 360 formation cores, the terrifying power of the origin formation would be completely unleashed. We have to stop them. Jianchun shivered inside. He immediately flew out of the bright moon divine hall and charged toward the people as quickly as he could. Killing intent surged around him. At that moment, Jianchun had already developed killing intent toward the Heaven Saint Master clansmen. He could not let them enter the cores of the formation. At this moment, the sound of a zither suddenly drifted over. It was gentle and pleasant, like heavenly music. It was not loud, but it drowned out the clamor in Changyang Prefecture, clearly reaching everyone's ears. Chapter 1197. Oh no, it's an attack on the soul. Everyone focus immediately. Don't listen. Changyang Qing Yun returned to his senses very quickly and immediately bellowed out. He wanted to use his voice to suppress the sound of the zither and awaken the affected clansmen, but the effects were minimal. Only a few of the stronger saint rulers resisted as hard as they could. The weaker saint rulers, heaven saint masters, and even weaker clansmen were all affected by the sound of the zither. Their eyes became blurry and they became drowsy. A large group of people had even collapsed on the ground, unconscious. The heavenly enchantress. Jianchun shook his head. He was overjoyed. Although he could not see her, he could guess her identity from the unique sound of the zither. The wondrous effects of the zither music became more and more evident. Gradually, the Heaven Saint Masters were unable to endure it any longer and collapsed on the ground in droves. In the end, even a few saint rulers followed in their footsteps, falling unconscious. In the blink of an eye, the people who had been charging towards the 360 formation cores had all fallen asleep. Even though the origin formation was very powerful, without the support of 360 people, the formation would not be able to operate. The faces of Changyang Qing Yun and the others paled. They all gritted their teeth as their bodies trembled. Their hatred for the heavenly enchantress had reached its limit. They were just about to activate the origin formation and use its power to kill off all the invaders. Not only would they be able to eliminate Jianchun, but they would also be able to obtain the saint's fruit. However, someone had ruined their plan at such a crucial moment, which made them want to vomit blood from anger. The sound of the zither did not stop. Instead, the magic within the music rapidly strengthened. In the end, even the strongest saint rulers could not endure it any longer and collapsed on the ground with a plop. Now, there was no one left standing on the floating continent. Only a few saint kings remained unscathed in the huge Changyang clan, as well as Yu Yu, who was hiding in the bright moon divine hall. The sound of a zither was unable to penetrate the seemingly thin barrier of light at the entrance of the divine hall. At this moment, the encirclement formation of the 18 divine halls vanished. The 18 saint rulers in the main divine hall tumbled out, falling from the sky like rocks. Their eyes were tightly shut, having fallen unconscious. Changyang Yuan Zhenghua, who stood on the highest divine hall, stared at this scene in shock. Disbelief filled his face while the 18 stone tablets slowly revolved around him. Although he could use the 18 stone tablets to control the halls, he could not use them to form the encirclement formation. This was because each divine hall needed a saint ruler to watch over it in order to form the encirclement formation. How can this be? Changyang Yuan Zhenghua said in a daze. Just a single zither note had reduced a protector clan to such a miserable state. He struggled to accept this. The great protector clan of the Changyang Prefecture was one of the 10 most powerful clans on the continent. They possessed several holy emperor experts, several dozen saint rulers, and many heaven saint masters, yet they had all been defeated by a single tune. No matter how great the heritage of the protector clan was or how many trump cards they possessed, it was all useless before the tune. This was because they were unable to resist a zither note that targeted the soul. At the same time, the zither note could penetrate all obstructions and reach the depths of the mountains. It was useless even if they covered their ears. In the blink of an eye, The Chanyang prefecture that had gained the upper hand and was on the verge of victory had been turned around by a zither note that seemed to have originated from outer space. They were headed toward defeat. The massive origin formation floating in the void had also disappeared. Without anyone to support the formation's 360 formation cores, the origin formation's powerful might could not be unleashed. If it continued to exist, it would only continue to drain the origin chi of this small world. What's going on outside? Yu stood in the bright moon divine hall as she stared at everything that had happened outside in shock. She was filled with doubt. The divine music coming from the void had been isolated by the light screen formed by the moonlight in front of her. The sound of the zither could not enter, so she naturally did not know what had happened outside. She only saw large numbers of people falling to the ground. Hong Lian regained her freedom, and the flames around her immediately surged, forming a huge sea of fire that enveloped her. Her figure flickered in and out of the sea of fire, making her seem like a god of fire. Her wounds rapidly healed as well. Hong Lian arrived before the 4 Holy Emperor experts in the Scarlet Flames. She coldly stared at them and coldly said, "I'd like to see just what you're capable of to fight me now." Chanyang Qingyun and the other 3 great elders had become completely pale. They were great elders of a protector clan, yet they had actually been humiliated by the enemy in their own territory. This was a vicious slap to their faces, but there was nothing they could say about it. Right now, the only thing they could use to threaten Hong Lian was the Emperor armament. However, even if they used the Emperor armament to fight Hong Lian to the death, they would not be able to achieve victory in a short amount of time. As time went on, they would not be able to last much longer and might even end up dying from the backlash of the Emperor armament. If the Emperor armament's full power can be used, only death awaits you even if you have the protection of the Origin Energy Armor. Long Jinhua finally managed to hold back his anger. After quite a while, Chanyang Yuan Zhenghua finally said something. Protector clans were proud, and their dignity could not be sullied. Chanyang Yuan Zhenghua did not want his clan to lose to a Saint King. Chanyang Qinyan's gaze was cold. He stared at Hong Lian, who was bathed in flames, and coldly snorted, "I really don't know what benefits Jianshin has given you to make the proud experts of the Divine Phoenix clan and the emperors of the Dragon clan abandon their dignity and serve him time and time again, becoming the lackeys of a brat still wet behind the ears." Chanyang Qinyan's voice was filled with naked mockery. Hong Lian's gaze turned cold. At this moment, her and Jianshin's faces changed at the same time. They had received Rui Jin's message. His secret technique was about to be completed, and he wanted them to leave immediately. Otherwise, they would be trapped in the miniature world. Hong Lian and Jianshin did not hesitate at all. They returned to the bright Moon Divine Hall as quickly as possible, and the Divine Hall immediately left the miniature world. Without the obstruction of the bright Moon Divine Hall, the World Gate in Chanyang Prefecture rapidly closed up. Just as the World Gate was about to close up, Chanyang Qingyun charged out with extreme speed. He already knew why Rui Jin wanted to seal up Chanyang Prefecture. A red feather refined from special material appeared in Hong Lian's hand once again. It was filled with the surging power of fire. Swish! The feather shot into the 2-meter-wide World Gate as a red streak of light before loudly exploding. It blocked Chanyang Qingyun inside. Just when the flames were about to spread to the outside world, the World Gate had completely closed. 9 dragons trapped the Heaven Seal. At the same time, Rui Jin bellowed out. 9 huge dragons charged out from the 9 stalks of dragons' saliva grass. Every single one of them was 100 meters long and illusionary. They had been condensed from the vast amounts of vital energy within the dragons' saliva grass. The 9 illusory dragons faced the sky and issued a soundless dragon roar. They tumbled in the air and finally collided with each other. The 9 huge bodies finally condensed into a golden dragon pearl the size of a human head. It floated in the air and emitted a dazzling radiance. Then it slowly disappeared. It had already sealed the space of this area. Rui Jin exhaled deeply. He seemed rather exhausted. Clearly, Using the secret technique to seal up Chanyang Prefecture had taken him quite a lot of effort. It's finally done. As long as the power of the Dragon Pearl doesn't disperse in the future, the people in Chanyang Prefecture won't be able to come out, Ruijin said, as if he had been relieved of a heavy burden. Jianxin and Honglian arrived before Ruijin. Jianxin asked, "Senior Ruijin, roughly how long can this seal last?" Ruijin pondered for a moment before replying, "The power of the Dragon Pearl is limited, and it cannot be replenished. Under normal circumstances, it can last for 100 years, but the people inside will definitely use everything they have to destroy the seal, which will increase the consumption of the Pearl's power. As a result, I'm not sure how long it can keep them sealed for, but it can keep them trapped for a few years at the very least, or even longer." "Senior Ruijin, can't we use the same seal again when they're about to break the seal?" You had already put the bright moon divine hall away. She stood beside Jianxun and asked. Ruijin shook his head. "You don't know, but the 9 stalks of dragon saliva grass I used to seal up Chanyang Prefecture were left behind by a senior of the dragon clan who had reached the level of the Holy Emperor. Every single dragon will only leave behind a stalk of dragon saliva grass after they die. My clan has already vanished for far too long, so there are only around a dozen stalks left in the tomb. I've used 9 of them this time, so there's no longer enough left to use the same secret technique." Jianxin and Yu were both disappointed. They both understood that once the power of the Dragon Pearl used up, Taita's identity would spread across the Tian Yuan continent and the Beast God continent. At the same time, he would suffer the swift retribution of Chanyang Prefecture. Although they could keep Taita's identity a secret as long as they killed all the people in the clan, it was clearly impossible for them to do so. Jianxun looked around a few times. At the same time, he expanded the senses of his soul in an attempt to find the heavenly enchantress, but he was disappointed. Even when he expanded the senses of his soul to the limit, he failed to find her. Chapter 1198. Jianxun could not help but be surprised when he heard what Ruijin had said. He knew that the heavenly enchantress' strength had skyrocketed at an unbelievable rate in the past few years. She was extremely powerful now, where she could be described as unfathomable. However, he had never thought that the heavenly enchantress would still be able to remain elusive before the Holy Emperor who had reached great perfection. This completely exceeded Jianxun's expectations. Has the heavenly enchantress' strength increased in the past few years because she gave birth to the innate chaotic body? Jianxun thought to himself. At the same time, he thought about what the sword spirits had said. The mother of the innate chaotic body would be blessed by the heavens and possess limitless potential. A strange light flickered through Yu's eyes. Although she had not heard the zither music in the bright moon divine hall, she had already guessed many things from the conversation between Ruijin and Jianxun. She arrived beside Jianxun and gently held his arm. She did not show any dissatisfaction, only deep curiosity. She gently asked, "Jianxun, who is the person who secretly assisted us? She's so powerful that even Senior Ruijin was unable to discover her." Jianxun hesitated. He looked at Yu and said, She calls herself the Heavenly Enchantress. Others call her the Heavenly Enchantress. If she hadn't assisted us earlier and destroyed the origin formation of Chanyang Prefecture, we probably would have been in quite a lot of trouble." Jianxun paused. Before Yu could ask any more questions, he continued, "Now that the problem of Chanyang Prefecture has been dealt with, let's immediately set off for the Heaven's Incense School. Senior Blackfish's poison is extremely deep. His life is in danger at any time, so we need to obtain the antidote as soon as possible." Ruijin and Honglian became stern when they mentioned Blackfish. They both understood just how powerful the poison was. Even the origin energy of Radiant Saint Force could not be removed. If they could not obtain the antidote, even if Blackfish was a holy emperor at great perfection, he would still die. They had already learned the location of the Heaven's Incense School from Chanyang Zuyinshao. Afterward, Ruijin ripped open a space gate and sent them several million kilometers away. The Heaven's Incense School was a rather unique existence among the 10 protector clans because it was a protector clan famed for its poison. The most common and most powerful method of attack in the Heaven's Incense School was not the devastating Saint Tier battle skills, but the unrivaled poison. At the same time, the cultivation method they practiced was extremely special. Their vast Saint force was also filled with various powerful poisons. Their use of poison had reached the apex long ago, where no one on the entire Tianyuan continent could match them. The poisons of the Heaven's Incense School came in all sorts of strange ways. They possessed all sorts of methods, and they would often poison their targets without them noticing. Some of the more powerful poisons could even threaten Holy Emperor-level experts. This was a boundless prairie. All kinds of weeds had already grown to a height of 3 to 4 meters. The branches and leaves were flexible and strong. In the sky above the prairie, the white clouds had already pressed down to a height of 100 meters. They gathered together and did not disperse. No matter how the wind whistled, it could not blow away this thick layer of clouds. Jianshun hugged Yu as he hovered 3 meters in the air with Ruijin and Honglian. The tips of their feet gently touched the grass. They seemed as light as a feather, where even the fragile grass could support their weight. Up ahead is the entrance to the miniature world of the Heaven's Incense School. I can already vaguely sense the spatial pulses unique to the World Gate, Ruijin calmly said as he stared ahead. Their gazes were all focused on the empty space in front of them. In their line of sight, there was nothing but a vast expanse of green. At this moment, a faint green figure flashed by. The tip of an unnamed plant beneath Jinshin's feet suddenly split open, forming a huge green mouth the size of a head. It was filled with sharp thorns, and slivers of viscous liquid slowly flowed within. It bit at one of Jinshin's feet with unbelievable speed. The sound of a weapon snapping rang out. Not only did the sharp teeth in the green mouth fail to bite through Jinshin's skin, but they also snapped off instead. Slivers of green viscous liquid stained Jinshin's pant leg that had been bitten, melting it almost instantly. The green, viscous liquid was extremely poisonous and corrosive. Jinshin did not seem to sense what was happening beneath his feet. He continued to stare ahead, but in the next moment, his leg that was still bitten by the green mouth trembled gently, directly shattering the green mouth and the branches below it. Ruijin and Honglian did not look at what was happening to Jinshin. Ruijin murmured, "These planes have been modified in the past. They can block out many people. It's probably the doing of the Heaven's Incense School." A sliver of malice flashed through Honglian's eyes. She said, "I can burn these planes to the ground with a single flame." Due to what had happened to Blackfish, Honglian did not have a good impression of the Heaven's Incense School. "I seem to know about these planes. These planes are known as the Oasis of Death by people. There are no magical beasts living in the Oasis of Death, only various strange plants. However, almost every single one of these plants can cause fatal harm. Earth Saint Masters have a slim chance of surviving if they enter, and even Heaven Saint Masters can't fly over. Due to the layer of clouds in the sky, Heaven Saint Masters can only fly below the clouds. They can't fly more than 100 meters above the ground. However, there are many plants in the Oasis of Death that can extend their flexible roots to 100 meters in the air. They can wrap around Heaven Saint Masters who pass by and suck them dry," Jianshan said with a heavy voice. "Looks like this Oasis of Death has harmed quite a few lives in the past. It would be fine if this place grew naturally, but it just so happens to be modified by the Heaven's Incense School. As one of the 10 great protector clans, they've actually created such a vicious place to harm lives. I don't think the Heaven's Incense School is anything good, so let me do a good deed," Honglian coldly said. As soon as she finished speaking, a scarlet flame surged from her body. With her at the center, it turned into a ring of fire that rapidly expanded in all directions. This was no ordinary fire. Although it was just a casual attack from Honglian, its power could not be underestimated. Wherever the huge ring of fire passed, all the plants were reduced to ashes. Even the soft soil on the ground had been burned to hard rock. All the roots that had taken root in the ground had withered away. The ring of fire expanded to 10 kilometers in diameter before it began to disperse. In just a single moment, An empty area appeared around Jinshin's group. The ground was black with cracks, and the smell of burnt flesh still lingered in the air. 5 kilometers away, flames surged into the sky as black mist surged. Although the ring of fire with terrifying heat had already vanished, it had ignited the plants in the distance. The flames slowly spread towards the entire oasis of death with unstoppable force. Wherever it passed, the ground would be charred black, leaving behind a thick smell of burnt flesh in the air. Suddenly, the space before Ruijin's group began to ripple. A 2-meter-wide world gate suddenly appeared, and a short, bald old man in black robes emerged. His face was filled with anger. "Who dares to do this? Who dares to do this? How dare you? Who set this place on fire? What, this is outrageous. The oasis that we worked so hard to nurture has been burned to such a state. Who did this? Stand up for this old man. Even if I take your head off, it won't make up for the sins you've committed." The bald old man immediately cursed in exasperation when he saw how the oasis had been burned to such a state. All of his attention was focused on the oasis that had already been reduced to a sea of fire, so he did not notice Jinshin's group. "Of course we did. However, your Heaven's Incense School may be one of the 10 protector clans, but you're still lacking if you want to take our heads off," Jinshin sneered. "Who dares to challenge the authority of the Heaven's Incense School? Don't they know that the Heaven's Incense School is dash?" The bald old man became even more furious, but he became tongue-tied halfway through his sentence. Like a bucket of cold water had been poured over his head. His anger was completely extinguished. He looked at Jinshin, Ruijin, and Honglian with a pale face. At this moment, he finally recognized who they were. The bald old man reacted extremely quickly as well. He vanished with a swish, and the world gate closed as quickly as it could. The bald old man seemed to have lost all his strength in a single moment within the miniature world of the Heaven's Incense School. He sat on the ground powerlessly as sweat dripped from his forehead. He constantly gasped for breath as deep fear remained in his eyes, even though he was a saint ruler. Why have they come? And they've burned down the oasis that we've spent so much effort to nurture as soon as they've come. They've come with ill intentions. It's over, it's over. We're in big trouble now. The old man's voice trembled as his heart was filled with fear. He had once witnessed the battle between Ruijin and Honglian against the Holy Emperor, which had left an indelible shadow in his heart. As a result, he was extremely afraid of Ruijin and Honglian. "I need to report this to the schoolmaster as soon as possible." The bald old man suppressed his fear and flew into the depths of the miniature world in a panic. Chapter 1199. The master of the Heaven's Incense School stood in front of the world gate with a group of experts. He did not give off an overbearing presence, nor did he show any displeasure or anger. Instead, he had a friendly smile on his face. He seemed like an amiable person, not even glancing at the burning oasis in the distance. "I'm the schoolmaster of the Heaven's Incense School, Lejunt. I welcome you on behalf of the school. If you don't mind, please come into the miniature world and have a seat so that I can perform my duties as a host," the schoolmaster of the Heaven's Incense School said with a smile. In reality, he had lost the courage to fight when he saw Jinshin, Honglian, and Ruijin standing there motionlessly, as well as the bright moon divine hall hovering in the air. Our friends were just ambushed by the Heaven's Incense School a few days ago. It's only been a few days since we last saw each other. How did the Heaven's Incense School, one of the 10 great guardian clans, suddenly become so hospitable? Honglian sneered. She was already equipped with the 9 refined Godfire feather, while the scorching Godfire hairpin hovered above her head. She was ready for battle. It's a misunderstanding, a misunderstanding. It's all a misunderstanding. Lejund did not become angered at all. He said apologetically, "Esteemed guests, the situation back then was just too special. The temptation of the saint's fruit was just too great, enough to make many holy emperor experts do crazy things. At the same time, our Heaven's Incense School was forced to make that choice. We had no choice, so we sincerely apologize for the situation back then." Jinshin, Ruijin, and Honglian could not help but look at one another when they saw Lejund apologize so humbly. Before they had come to the Heaven's Incense School, they had already guessed that there would be many possibilities. He had guessed many things that could happen, but he never thought that it would end up like this. The oasis that the Heaven's Incense School had painstakingly nurtured over so many years had been burned down by Honglian. Not only was the schoolmaster not angry at all, he had even given up on his lofty status to apologize to them. They found this rather unbelievable. After all, the Heaven's Incense School was one of the 10 protector clans of the Tian Yuan continent. As one of the most powerful clans on the continent, they obviously had a side of pride. Ruijin stood with his hands behind his back as a profound smile appeared on his face. He gently said, "I never thought that the schoolmaster of the Heaven's Incense School would actually abandon his status to apologize to us. This has truly exceeded our expectations. Jianshun, you should deal with this matter. Honglian and I are only responsible for fighting." Jianshun nodded slightly. The light in his eyes flickered as he stared at the people of the Heaven's Incense School. After a moment of thought, he said, "Esteemed schoolmaster Lejund, the experts of your Heaven's Incense School used the poison of Heaven's End on Senior Blackfish in the Death Nest, causing Senior Blackfish to still be tortured by the poison. His life could be in danger at any time. Don't you think that's a joke if you want to resolve such a deep grudge with just a few words?" Jianshan is right. In order to express our sincerity, we are willing to offer the antidote to the poison of Heaven's End, as well as 5 Class 8 monster cores, 20 Class 7 monster cores, 100 Class 6 monster cores, and 500 Class 5 monster cores as an apology. We only hope that we can bury the hatchet." The master of the Heaven's Incense School said sincerely. He paused for a moment before continuing, "Of course, we know that you don't need these monster cores at all with your strength. However, from what I know, you have a powerful mercenary group under you. With the help of these monster cores, that group of mercenaries will definitely be able to use them. With the help of these monster cores, their overall strength will definitely increase by quite a lot." Jianshan was indeed interested. Class 8 and 7 monster cores were rare items on the Tian Yuan continent, because basically all the powerful magical beasts were gathered on the Beast God continent and in the depths of the Cross Mountains. Aside from those 2 places, it was very difficult to come across Class 7 magical beasts on the Tian Yuan continent, let alone Class 8 magical beasts. The Class 7 magical beasts in the Cross Mountains were protected by the Beast God continent as well. As long as the magical beasts did not break the rules, even the experts of the protector clans could not slaughter them so easily. As a result, Class 7 monster cores were priceless on the Tian Yuan continent, while Class 8 monster cores were completely extinct. Jianshan was more than happy to have the Heaven's Incense School take the initiative to negotiate. After the battle in Chanyang Prefecture, Jianshan had gained a completely new understanding of the heritage of the protector clans. If the protector clans used all their heritage, he would not necessarily be able to gain any benefits, so it was best if he did not offend the protector clans. Moreover, his enmity with the Heaven's Incense School was nowhere near as deep as in Chanyang Prefecture. At the same time, Jianshan needed the monster cores provided by the Heaven's Incense School very much as well. After a moment of thought, Jianshan said, "It's not impossible to turn hostility into friendship, but we'll have to raise the price. Brother Jianshan, may I ask how many you want? Why don't you give me a number so I can consider it?" Lejund let out a sigh of relief and sighed. Their protector clans did not lack monster cores. As long as they could resolve the matter peacefully, they would not mind losing some wealth. Even the protector clans did not want to offend experts on the level of Ruijin and Honglian so easily. Moreover, Jianshun possessed the saint's fruit. Before long, a true holy emperor would appear beside him. A crafty light flashed through Jianshun's eyes. After seriously pondering for a while, he said, 5 Class 9 monster cores, 20 Class 8 monster cores, 60 Class 7 monster cores, 500 Class 6 monster cores, and 3,000 Class 5 monster cores. Lejun's face darkened more and more when he heard Jinshin's number. His facial muscles twitched unnaturally when he heard the 5 Class 9 monster cores. The Heaven's Incense School was very rich, but even with their wealth, it would still be a loss for them to obtain such a large number of high-class monster cores. Why you've gone too far? Do you think these high-class monster cores are easy to obtain, especially Class 9 monster cores? Do you know just what kind of powerful magical beast would be able to produce a Class 9 monster core? An old man beside the school master fumed with rage. In his eyes, Jinshin's group was robbing him, and they were robbing one of the 10 protector clans, the Heaven's Incense School. Jinshin crossed his arms and smiled. Of course I know. Only magical beasts that have reached the level of the Holy Emperor can possess Class 9 monster cores. However, your Heaven's Incense School is a protector clan that has existed for over 1 million years. You must have quite a few Class 9 monster cores. Monster cores can't be stored for too long, or the energy inside will solidify or flow away. It might even turn the monster core into a piece of tough rock. We have indeed obtained a few Class 9 monster cores in history, but there aren't a lot of them. However, our clans still consume some of them, and once they exceed the time limit, they will be used by the experts of the clan. There are extremely few that have been preserved to this day. 5 is indeed too much. We can give you 2, the schoolmaster said with a darkened face. Jinshin shook his head. No, not a single one less. Aside from a monster cores, I also want a Saint-tier cultivation method from your Heaven's Incense School, as well as a Heaven-tier battle skill that matches the cultivation method. Remember, I only want your poison attacks. Don't try to fool me with cultivation methods from outside. Lejund was speechless. Only now did he discover that Jinshin's appetite was far greater than he had imagined, and there was no room for negotiation. Our Heaven's Incense School never passes our cultivation methods to outsiders. You're dreaming if you want our Saint-tier cultivation method. Schoolmaster, they've gone too far. We can't compromise. Let's fight it out with them. Our Heaven's Incense School is a mighty protector clan. Why have we ever been bullied like this? Do you really think we're afraid of you? The saint rulers behind the schoolmaster could not hold back any longer. They all furiously called out as their eyes were filled with fury and deep humiliation. As members of a protector clan, they had never been so humiliated before. Jinshin said, "Esteemed schoolmaster Lejund, it looks like I must declare that before we came to the Heaven's Incense School, we already paid a visit to the protector clan of Chanyang Prefecture and engaged in a great battle with them in the miniature world. We've already experienced the power of the Emperor armament, encirclement formation and origin formation, but they were still unable to keep us here. Instead, they reduced their miniature world to a mess and injured countless clansmen. I don't think a few monster cores can compare to their losses." Chapter 1200. What? Chanyang Prefecture has activated the origin formation? The expressions of the master of the Heaven's Incense School and many of the saint rulers suddenly changed when they heard about the origin formation. They possessed origin formations as well, and they understood the power of origin formations extremely well. It was exactly because of this that they were so shocked. This was because the origin formation was a powerful formation that could easily kill even Holy Emperor experts. Its power was limitless. Yet Chanyang Prefecture had failed to kill Jinshin and the others after activating the origin formation. This naturally shocked the experts of the Heaven's Incense School. At this moment, all the people who had been clamoring earlier obediently shut their mouths. They no longer dared to say anything else. Chanyang Prefecture was powerful enough to rank in the top 3 among the protector clans. On the other hand, their Heaven's Incense School only had 6 Holy Emperor experts, and none of them had reached great perfection. Although they knew how to use poison, their overall strength was not as great as Chanyang Prefecture's. If even Chanyang Prefecture could not do anything to them, how could their Heaven's Incense School be their opponent? Schoolmaster, if what they've said is true, our Heaven's Incense School probably isn't their opponent. At the same time, there are many poisonous plants in our school. If they enter the miniature world, they'll probably destroy all the plants. These poisonous plants are the lifeblood of our school. We can't afford to lose them. Although the poison of Heaven's End can pose a threat to them, the 4 elders were heavily injured after using the poison of Heaven's End in the Death Nest last time. They're still recovering in seclusion, so we don't have the power to use the poison of Heaven's End a second time, the old man beside the schoolmaster said through a communication technique. He was extremely stern. He was one of the great elders of the Heavens Incense School, as well as the only holy emperor expert present aside from the schoolmaster. The master of the Heavens Incense School, Lejund, also became extremely solemn. If Jinshin's group entered the miniature world of the Heavens Incense School, the losses they would suffer would be far greater than what they had suffered in Changyang Prefecture. This was something that they did not wish to see. This was because the unique poison techniques of the Heavens Incense School required the use of poisonous grasses to cultivate. They had planted a large number of poisonous grasses in their miniature world. If they were destroyed, it would affect the overall strength of the Heavens Incense School. It might even cause the school to fall into a period of decline for a very long time. All right, I agree to your request. Lejund had no other choice. She gritted her teeth and agreed to Jinshin's request. Even with the Heavens Incense School's foundation, the loss of so many high-class monster cores would be a huge blow. In particular, the loss of 5 Class 9 monster cores made Lejund's heart bleed. Afterwards, Jinshin received a large number of high-class monster cores, a Saint-tier cultivation method, and a Heaven-tier battle skill as he wished. At the same time, he fulfilled his agreement with the Heavens Incense School and stopped causing trouble for them. Jinshin and Ruijin returned to Lore City with the antidote for the poison of Heaven's End. They fed it to Blackfish as soon as possible. After ingesting the antidote, Blackfish's complexion visibly improved even though the poison had not been completely purged from his body. Blackfish no longer used his own power to suppress the poison. His face that had become blackened from the poison smiled. We've finally dealt with this damned poison of Heaven's End. I almost lost my life. This poison sure is powerful. It's fine as long as you're fine. You're a mighty Saint King at great perfection with the protection of Origin Energy Armor. Yet you almost died to the poison. You're really something. Honglian mocked as she stood there in her fiery red robes. She seemed to be mocking Jinshin as well. Blackfish became embarrassed for once. He was left speechless. No matter what, Senior Blackfish's matter was caused by me. If it weren't for the fact that I wanted to take the Saint's fruit, Senior Blackfish would not have been poisoned. Seniors, I really must thank you for your assistance in the past few days. Jinshin will remember your kindness and will never forget it. Jinshin clasped his hands at the 3 of them one by one. He spoke from the bottom of his heart. If it were not for the assistance of Ruijin and the others, he would not have been able to obtain the Saint's fruit, nor would he have been able to seal up Changyang Prefecture. He would not have been able to use the deterrence of Ruijin and Honglian to steal a large number of high-class monster cores from the Heavens Incense School. Honglian looked at Jinshin. Her eyes were faintly red, and flames seemed to leap about in her eyes. She said, Jinshin, keeping you alive is the greatest repayment you can give us. Jinshin obviously attributed all of this to the winged tiger. This was because he really could not think of any other reason why Ruijin and the others would follow him aside from the winged tiger. Moreover, the winged tiger was the god of magical beasts, while Ruijin and the others were people of the winged tiger. Coupled with the fact that the ruler of the beast god continent wanted to kill the winged tiger, it was only natural that the 3 of them would step forward to protect the winged tiger. Although Blackfish had obtained the antidote, he still needed some time to purge the poison from his body. Jinshin and the others chatted for a while before going their separate ways. Ruijin and Honglian had both been quite exhausted from the battle in Changyang Prefecture, so they both went off to recover. Jinshin and Yu Yu walked side by side, strolling through the large Changyang Prefecture. All the patrolling guards knelt down and bowed when they saw the 2 of them. Their eyes were filled with fanatical admiration. Jinshin ignored the guards. All he could think about was how to distribute the large number of high-class monster cores he had just obtained. He did not plan on using the monster cores for himself. Although the number of monster cores was astounding, the amount of energy he needed to break through to the 4th layer of the chaotic body was just far too tremendous. Even if he absorbed all the monster cores, he might not be able to break through to the 4th layer. If he used the monster cores on the Changyang Prefecture and the Flame Mercenaries, they would indeed be able to increase their strength by a large margin. Jinshin's face suddenly changed. He looked into the distance, and saw 4 red specks appear in the distant sky. They were hurrying toward Chanyang Prefecture with lightning speed. In just a few seconds, they had entered Lore City and stopped outside the entrance of Chanyang Prefecture. They were 4 middle-aged men in blood-red robes. They were all emotionless and had cold gazes. Without the slightest hint of emotion, a layer of faintly discernible energy wrapped around their bodies, causing the surrounding temperature to abruptly drop, causing others to not dare to approach them. 2 ruddy old men appeared at the entrance like ghosts. They emotionlessly stared at the 4 middle-aged men in blood-red robes. One of them coldly asked, "What are you people from the Bloodsword sect doing here?" "They're looking for me." A clear voice rang out from behind as soon as the old man finished speaking. "Jianshun strode over with you, you following beside him like a little bird." The 2 ruddy old men smiled kindly when they saw that it was Jianshun. They nodded at Jianshun before disappearing in a flash. Jianshun did not know the names of the 2 old men. He only knew that they were saint rulers of the Zhu branch. In terms of seniority, he should call them great-grandfather. The 4 protectors of the Bloodsword sect greet the sect master. The 4 middle-aged men in blood-red robes all knelt on one knee and spoke at the same time. Jianshun hurried over to help them up. The 4 protectors had once done Chanyang Prefecture a favor. They had basically saved several thousand people in Chanyang Prefecture. He had never forgotten about them. Jianshun called the 4 protectors into his hall and asked, "Protectors, may I ask why you've suddenly come to find me?" "Sect Master, the old Sect Master has already stepped down many days ago. We've come under the orders of the Vice Sect Master to invite the Sect Master back to the headquarters so that we can hold a ceremony for the new Sect Master and plan the future of the sect," the first protector politely replied. "Protectors, may I ask if anyone in the sect has any objections to me inheriting the position of Sect Master?" Jianshun tapped the table rhythmically as he stared at the 4 protectors in interest. "Sect Master, your strength speaks for itself. Everyone in the sect, including the Vice Sect Master, supports you inheriting the position of Sect Master." "No one has any objections," said the first protector. Jianshun nodded slightly. "All right then. However, I still have some matters to attend to before I go to the Bloodsword sect. Protectors, please stay in the residence for a few days. Once I'm done with my matters, I'll go with you to the Bloodsword sect." "As you wish, Sect Master." Afterwards, Jianshun went to find Chanyang Ba. He took out 500 class 5 monster cores, 100 class 6 monster cores, and 10 class 7 monster cores from the Heaven's Incense School and gave them to Chanyang Ba to nurture the forces of Chanyang Prefecture. As for how Chanyang Ba would distribute the monster cores, Jianshun did not care. Afterwards, Jianshun entered the artifact space. There was a majestic hall in the center of the artifact space. At this moment, Jianshun sat boldly on the throne in the largest hall. Behind him, a white-robed, scholarly middle-aged man stood there silently like an attendant. The middle-aged man was the manifestation of the artifact spirit. He was the ruler of the artifact space. At this time, a group of dozens of people walked into the palace in an orderly manner. Their footsteps were very light and did not make the slightest sound. They were completely silent. All of them were tall and sturdy, with strong waists and strong backs. Their bodies emitted a valiant aura that was abnormally powerful. After consuming the flesh and blood of the serpent dragon, their bodies had clearly been strengthened. "Greetings, Captain." A total of 66 men all knelt on the ground as they called out with a deafening cry. The slogan was loud and clear, and it was so loud that it seemed to be able to topple mountains and overturn seas. Jianshun did not say anything. His bright eyes flickered with a strange light as he slowly glanced over each and every one of them. The more he looked, the more satisfied and happy he became. In the end, he could not help but smile. Suddenly, Jianshun stood up from the throne and strode down. He said, Good. You've all improved extremely quickly these days. Out of the 66 of you, 43 have already reached the 6th cycle, while the weakest of the remaining 23 have reached the 4th cycle. I believe that you'll all reach the 6th cycle as well before long. You really haven't let me down." Kyle said, Captain, it's all because of Captain's unrelenting support that we have today. Without Captain's support, we'd probably only be able to reach Earth's Saint Master with our talent. Even Heaven's Saint Master would be an extravagant hope. Chapter 1201. Jianshun was extremely satisfied. He said, I, Jianshun, promise you that your future accomplishments won't stop at Heaven's Saint Master. You'll become saint rulers or even saint emperors who are like legends in your eyes. However, you must remember that not only do you have to be loyal to me, but you also have to be loyal to the Flame Mercenaries. You're a part of the Flame Mercenaries. In the future, you'll be the protectors of the Flame Mercenaries. Captain, we can forget our names, but we can never forget our mission, a large bearded man called out. A bearded man in the crowd said loudly. His fighting spirit was high, and his eyes were filled with firm conviction. Jianshun smiled. He felt extremely proud inside as he looked at the group that was brimming with vitality. This was because the group had been created by his hands. He was the one who had turned a group of mercenaries with mediocre talent from the bottom of the Tian Yuan continent into the experts they were now. However, Jianshun had invested a lot in creating a group like this. Whether it was heavenly resources, monster cores, cultivation methods, or battle skills, he spared no effort in providing them. Even ancient clans would struggle to invest so much. He had even specially gone to the divine realm of the sea realm to obtain the divine water of the world for the sake of the group, all to make up for their innate deficiency in reaching sainthood. At this moment, Jianshun took out a space ring and passed it to Kyle. He said, there are 200 class 6 monster cores, 30 class 7 monster cores, and a saint tier cultivation method and heaven tier battle skill in there. Distribute it to the people who need it. Jianshun was willing to invest as much as he could in order for the group to reach his goal as soon as possible. Right now, the Flame Mercenaries needed a powerful force that belonged to them far too much. Yes, Captain. Kyle excitedly accepted the space ring. His hand trembled as he held the space ring. As soon as he thought about the 30 class 7 monster cores and 200 class 6 monster cores in there, his heart surged. Cultivate well. Once you become a saint, you can leave this place and go to the outside world. Jianshun did not stay there for long. With that, he left the artifact space. When he returned to the Chanyang prefecture of Lore City, it had been less than half a day since he had returned from the Heaven's Incense School. Of the large batch of high-grade magical beasts he had obtained from the Heaven's Incense School, apart from the 9th and 8th grade magical beasts that he hadn't touched, he had already squandered most of them. Of the 67th grade magical beasts, only 20 were left. Of the 606th grade magical beasts, only 200 were left. As for the 5th grade magical beasts, there were still 2,500 were left. Afterward, Jianshun asked Changyang Zuyunxiao to construct a space gate so that he could take you to the base of the Flame Mercenaries, Flame City. Jianshun silently moved through the palace-like city lord's estate at the center of the city with Yu. They approached a heavily guarded study. Jianshun used the powerful abilities of a 9th heavenly layer saint ruler. Even though there were many experts hidden in the surroundings, no one discovered him, allowing him to enter the study silently. It was a very large and extravagant study, covering an area of several hundred square meters. A faint, unique scent that only belonged to scrolls wafted through the air. At the front of the study, a woman in a white robe was sitting there, reading a book with great concentration. The woman looked to be about 20 years old, and she had a heavenly beauty. Her glossy black hair was simply coiled behind her head with an exquisite hairpin. The hairpin emitted a faint purple light. It was made of incomparably precious purple gold, and was very expensive. The woman vaguely gave off the presence of someone who had been in a high position for a long time. A middle-aged man and a middle-aged woman stood on either side of the desk. They were both Heaven's Saint Masters, and they silently protected the woman who was reading at the desk. At this moment, the door to the study opened silently. Jianshun and Yu walked in side by side. Then, they didn't seem to do anything, but the door to the study closed automatically without making a single sound. The two Heaven's Saint Masters had their eyes fixed on the door the entire time, so they discovered Jianshun and Yu Yu as soon as they entered. Their gazes immediately sharpened, and just when they were about to yell out, they discovered that the space around them had actually frozen. The two of them were tightly bound to the spot, unable to move at all. They did not even have the ability to speak. At this moment, the woman was completely oblivious to what was happening. She was completely engrossed in her reading. Only when Yu walked up to the desk and gently knocked on it did she snap back to her senses. However, when she saw Jianshun and Yu Yu suddenly appear before the desk, she became stunned at first before becoming overjoyed. She immediately stopped reading and arrived beside Yu Yu. She held Yu Yu's hand in an extremely affectionate manner and excitedly said, "Brother, sister Yu, why have you come? Why didn't you send someone to tell me beforehand?" Yu Yu smiled. "Sister Lien, we wanted to give you a surprise, so we came to find you without alerting anyone. You won't be angry, right?" Bai Lien pouted and said with some dissatisfaction, "Brother, sister Yu, I'm more than happy that you've come, so why would I be angry?" Afterwards, Bai Lien arrived beside Jianshun and hugged Jianshun's arm intimately. She looked at him hopefully and said, "Brother, you're the captain of the Flame Mercenaries. Do you plan on staying a little longer in your territory this time? Then I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you. I've specially come for some important matters, so I'll be leaving very soon." Jianshun smiled. Bai Lien immediately became disappointed. However, she also knew that her brother basically spent all his time running around and had a lot of matters to attend to, so she did not force him. You sure live a leisurely life as the captain of the Flame Mercenaries. You've left such a huge mess for your sister to take care of, yet you don't care about it all. You spend all your time sightseeing outside." At this moment, an old voice rang out from outside. The door to the study opened, and Bai Hai walked in with his hands behind his back. Bai Hai had originally been cultivating under Mercenary City with Huang Tianba, but he was worried about Bai Lien's safety. As a result, he left Mercenary City midway and returned to Flame City. Jianshun and Yu Yu bowed to Bai Hai as juniors before Jianshun retorted, "Great-grandfather, I don't agree with what you just said. I'm not sightseeing on the Tianyuan continent. I really do have important matters to attend to." Chapter 1202. Grandfather, stop talking. I don't want to lock myself up in a secret room every day like you do. Every time I lock myself up, it'll be months or even years. How boring is that? I just like managing the Flame Mercenaries. Look, the Flame Mercenaries have become so prosperous and powerful under my management. It's so much more interesting than locking yourself up in a secret room to cultivate all day, Bai Lien said proudly. Her face was brimming with a sense of accomplishment. Bai Hai glared at Bai Lien. He seemed very stern on the surface, but his eyes were filled with unconcealable affection. He said angrily, "You're far too disobedient. What kind of results can you get from wasting so much energy on this mess? If you don't cultivate properly, you'll be wasting all the precious heavenly resources your brother has spent on you. If you really want to help your brother, then cultivate properly. That's much more useful than you taking care of this mess. No matter how well you take care of this mess, it's nowhere near as useful as a holy emperor. With a wave of their hand, they can turn this mess into nothingness." Bai Lien knew that Bai Hai's words made a lot of sense, so she did not refute him. She stuck out her tongue in a naughty manner and pulled Bai Hai's hand affectionately, gently shaking it. She said sweetly, "Great-grandfather, of course I understand what you're saying. Actually, you don't know that I've been cultivating a lot harder than before." "A lot harder? Don't think that just because I'm not by your side, I don't know what you've been doing all day. There are 24 hours in a day, and you only spend 4 to 6 hours cultivating. You call that hard working?" Speaking of this, Bai Hai was furious. He really couldn't do anything about this smart and quick-witted great-granddaughter in front of him. On the contrary, she often made him anxious to the point of being badly battered. As the person with the highest authority in the Flame Mercenaries, Bai Lien actually shrunk her neck in the face of the furious Bai Hai. She then arrived beside Jianshun and looked at Jianshun as if she was asking for help. She said sweetly, "Brother, look at how fierce great-grandfather is. I'm just a girl, yet he's always trying to lock me up in a dark and terrifying underground room. Big brother, I know you love Leander the most, right? Please persuade great-grandfather. Leander knows that big brother's words are like an imperial edict, more effective than anything else. Even great-grandfather by Hai, who flaunts his seniority, doesn't dare to ignore it. You damn girl. Bai Hai fumed on one side as he pointed at Bai Lian. He was a loss for words. Jinshin looked at Bai Lian's pitiful appearance lovingly and smiled. Lian, great-grandfather is right. Becoming stronger is more important than anything else. You should just let go of the miscellaneous matters of the flame mercenaries. Brother, I understand. Bai Lian clearly listened to Jinshin more. She immediately became docile as soon as Jinshin spoke, but a sliver of craftiness appeared in her eyes. She said, Brother, if you stay in Flame City, I'll have a lot less to worry about. That way, I'll be able to spend more time on cultivation. Jinshin had no idea whether to laugh or cry as he looked at his sister. He said, Leonor, I really don't have a lot of time. How about this? I'll stay in Flame City for 2 days and guide your cultivation with great-grandfather. Afterwards, Jinshin took out a space ring and handed it to Bai Lian before temporarily staying in Flame City. The space ring contained all the Class 5, 6, and 7 monster cores he had obtained from the Heaven's Incense School. However, all the Class 7 monster cores have been given to Bai Hai for safekeeping. Only the Class 5 and 6 monster cores were given to Hong Lian to use as she pleased. At this moment, a burly, disheveled man was walking with great difficulty in a desolate wilderness. His hair was disheveled, his clothes were in tatters, and his feet were bare. He seemed like a beggar. On his burly body, there were several hideous and terrifying wounds. From the looks of it, some were caused by the bites of magical beasts, while others were caused by sharp weapons such as swords and sabers. Even though the man seemed to be very heavily injured, his steps were still filled with power. He moved like the wind and seemed completely fine. The disheveled man stopped and took out a map from his bosom to look at it. Then, he used his hand to tidy up his messy hair that had already covered his eyes. His eyes, which were as deep as the starry sky, were revealed. With this speed, I'll be home in another month, the man murmured before putting the map away and continuing on his way. At this moment, a figure flew over from afar and landed beside the man. It was a young man in blue robes. He seemed to be in his 30s and possessed quite the bearing. Kid, I just went to a city 100 kilometers away and bought a few roasted chickens and some good wine. Let's sit down and have a good meal first. The young man in blue took out 2 roasted chickens from his interspatial ring and tossed one of the roasted chickens to the abject man. The shabby man and the young man were obviously very familiar with each other. Without any pleasantries, he took the roast chicken with one hand and the wine pot with the other. He sat cross-legged on the ground, facing the young man, and began to eat. Kid, I can't help but admire your perseverance and stubbornness. There are so many magical beasts that can be used as mounts, but you just don't want them and insist on walking. The Tian Yuan continent is so large, so you won't be able to walk from east to west even if you walk for your entire life. Furthermore, the journey home is so long. If I hadn't brought you along on the way, I'm afraid it would have taken you a year or 2 to get here. The young man gulped down the wine and meat as he spoke to the man in a muffled voice. The man swallowed the chicken in his mouth and stared at the young man with his deep, starry eyes. He said seriously, Senior, all living things are the spirits of all things. The spirits of all things are nurtured by the world, and we humans are the best of the best. As long as the time is right, we will be able to comprehend the truth of the world. This world is wondrous, and the ground that makes up this world is filled with a great and unbelievable power. When you walk on the ground with your feet, you will feel this wondrous power and feel the veins of the ground. You will then comprehend the truth of the world through this wondrous power and veins. What did you say? There's a great and unbelievable power in the ground. Is there really such a thing? Why can't I feel it? The young man stood up from the ground and began to pace around with his feet as if he was serious. Senior, you can't feel it because your opportunity hasn't come yet, or you're missing something, the man said seriously. He did not seem like he was joking at all. The young man laughed and sat down across from the man again. He smiled. To think that I, Feng Yixiao, am a mighty saint ruler, only a step away from becoming the holy emperor, yet I'm actually being described by a puny earth saint master in such a place. I really don't know whether to laugh or cry. Kid, you say I'm missing something, so why don't you tell me what I'm missing? What you're missing is... The man sank into his thoughts. After thinking about it seriously for quite a while, he shook his head in confusion. I don't know what Senior is missing either. You really are an interesting kid. If it weren't for the fact that I practice a special cultivation technique that allows me to sense whether a person is telling the truth or not, I would definitely think that you were toying with me. Kid, do you know what happens to those who dare to trick me? Feng Yixiao? Feng Yixiao said. I can also feel that Senior is a decisive person who kills without hesitation. Your hands are stained with the blood of countless people. Anyone who offends Senior will end up dead without exception. The disheveled man said calmly. Then you're not afraid of me? Feng Yixiao looked at the man. The down-and-out man shook his head and said, The world is heartless, and the spirits of all living things are also heartless when they are born. The so-called 7 emotions and 6 desires are all born after birth. I am following the path of the world, walking a heartless path, walking a path of freedom. Naturally, I have to cut off the 7 emotions and 6 desires that were born after birth. Of course, I am not afraid of death. I have already cut it off. Kid, you sure are strange. I've wandered the Tian-Yuan continent for over 1,000 years, and I've seen countless people of all shapes and sizes. However, this is the first time I've seen a kid as strange as you. You said that you're walking a heartless path and that you have to sever your emotions and desires. If that's the case, why do you still want to go home? Since you've already severed them, what's the point of going back? Feng Yixiao asked out of curiosity. I've already severed all my emotions and desires, but I just can't sever the final barrier. The man suddenly became pained. Tears rolled down his cheeks as he sorrowfully said, I can't forget my father, and I can't forget my mother either. My mother only has me as her only son. If she loses me, she'll be in so much pain that she'll wish she was dead. There's also my sister, 3rd brother, and 4th brother. I can't forget them, nor do I dare to forget them. I don't want to be a heartless person. I can't sever the final barrier. I can't sever it. I can't sever it. I can't sever it. Towards the end, the man basically roared out. His face was filled with pain. Feng Yixiao stopped eating and drinking. He stared at the man, and only after a long while did he gently sigh. You're walking an unusual path of cultivation. Although I don't know what kind of path it is, I do know that it's extremely cruel. It's not suitable for you right now. If you really can't do it, just take another path. Chapter 1203. Are your feelings reliable? Do you really trust them that much? Feng Yixiao looked at the disheveled man in confusion. In his long memory, this was the first time he had been so interested in a mere Earth Saint Master. However, Feng Yixiao understood that although the disheveled man's strength was nothing special, he really could sense something different about him. Otherwise, with his strength and arrogance, it was impossible for him to become acquainted with a mere Earth Saint Master for no reason. The disheveled man nodded firmly. He said in an unquestionable tone, I trust my feelings very much. Ever since I set foot on this path, my feelings have never been wrong. Anything that I can sense will happen. Oh, since your feelings are so sharp, why don't you try and sense if you'll forget the people you can't forget? Feng Yixiao bit into his roast chicken and said with interest. The disheveled man's expression became very downcast. He didn't even have the slightest appetite. He lowered his head deeply and said in a low voice, I don't dare to think about this problem. I also don't dare to feel the future in this aspect. I'm afraid that something painful will happen. The disheveled man fell silent again. As if he had understood something, he let out a long sigh and said, Severing your emotions and desires is not forcing you to forget. Instead, it's freeing you from them. There won't be any pain during this process. There will only be indifference. Right now, I still haven't severed my emotions, which is why I feel pain. However, when I unknowingly sever them in the future, I won't feel like this anymore. At that time, family will be nothing in my eyes. I'll forget everyone at that time, including my mother. The disheveled man's voice was filled with deep sorrow. He knew extremely well that once he severed his last bit of family, he might reach a supreme realm of cultivation, and his strength would increase drastically. However, he would abandon all his emotions at the same time. He didn't want to be like this. He would rather be an ordinary mortal than abandon his feelings for his biological parents. However, he had no choice at all. Right now, his fate seemed to have been arranged by the heavens. It could not be stopped as he wished. He could only continue on this path. Feng Yixiao tossed the boneless roast chicken far away before gulping down all the alcohol in his flask. Afterward, he stood up and said, "Kid, since you're so sad, let's not talk about this anymore. Look at you. You're a man, yet you're about to cry. You're just like a girl. I just happen to have matters to attend to. I've already wasted quite a lot of time with you, so I can't waste any more time. I have to leave immediately." The disheveled man calmed himself very soon. He stood up and said, "Senior, thank you for your help in the past few days. If I have the chance in the future, I'll definitely repay you." Feng Yixiao laughed aloud. "Repay? Ha! I reckon that the next time we meet, you won't even recognize who I am. What's there to repay?" "Senior, I definitely won't forget you," the disheveled man replied, rather awkwardly. "Kid, don't you want to go to the kingdom of Jessen? There's still over 100,000 kilometers to the kingdom of Jessen. With your legs, it'll probably take you a few years. I just happen to be going in the same direction as you, so I'll take you along. Although I can't take you to the kingdom of Jessen, I can save you some time at the very least," Feng Yixiao said in an extremely straightforward manner. It was definitely a great honor for a puny Earth Saint Master to receive the assistance of a ninth heavenly layer Saint Ruler. However, the disheveled man behaved very normally. He only thanked Feng Yixiao with a smile. He was extremely calm and did not become excited at all. Feng Yixiao had already become accustomed to the disheveled man's calmness, so he said nothing more. He grabbed the disheveled man by the shoulder and quickly left. After Feng Yixiao's departure, an extremely ordinary-looking, white-robed, middle-aged man silently appeared where they had been standing. He stared in the direction Feng Yixiao had left in a daze and murmured, "Chanyang, who has already reached the final step of the first layer of freedom. He's only missing the final step." After leaving the Pure Heart Pavilion, Chanyang, who has experienced a lot along the way. He's gone through trials of life and death and comprehended the various aspects of life, which has allowed him to take a huge step forward in the first layer of freedom. It's just a pity that Feng Yixiao suddenly appeared along the way. Not only did he fail to help Chanyang, but he even delayed everything. Otherwise, Chanyang probably would have been able to sever his last worries on his way home. Feng Yixiao's actions have made Chanyang return home early, so I wonder if anything will happen. A mighty Saint Ruler is actually interested in a puny Earth Saint Master. Sigh, is this the will of the heavens? Even the heavens want to arrange for Chanyang to meet his family at such a crucial moment. Feng Yixiao used spatial force to travel. His body seemed to have fused with space, completely fusing with it. Although he moved extremely quickly, he did not encounter any resistance from the air, so he flew silently. The disheveled man with Feng Yixiao could only see the blurry scenery below him. When they flew over some cities, they could not even make out what the cities looked like. In less than half a day, Feng Yixiao had crossed several tens of thousand kilometers with his strength as a ninth heavenly layer Saint Ruler. In the end, he stopped 10 kilometers away from a small town. "Kid, this is as far as I can send you. You'll have to rely on yourself for the rest of the journey. Take these purple coins and buy some things you need along the way," Feng Yixiao said in a carefree and generous manner. He tossed a spatial ring in his hand to the bedraggled man. "Senior, I don't need. Kid, there's no reason for me to take back what I've given away. Are you looking down on what I've given away?" Feng Yixiao narrowed his eyes and said angrily. The disheveled man was helpless. He could only accept the space ring obediently. Feng Yixiao patted the disheveled man's shoulder and said, "Kid, take care of yourself in the future. I hope you'll still remember me the next time we meet." With that, Feng Yixiao flew off before the disheveled man could reply. "Senior, I'll definitely remember you the next time we meet, the disheveled man called out in the direction Feng Yixiao had disappeared in. The disheveled man did not leave. Instead, he stood where he was and silently stared in the direction Feng Yixiao had left in. He had only met Feng Yixiao by chance. Yet Feng Yixiao had actually helped him so much selflessly despite being a saint ruler. This touched him deeply. During the time he spent with Feng Yixiao, he could clearly sense Feng Yixiao's sincerity towards him. There was definitely no other reason behind it. Suddenly, the disheveled man's eyes darkened. They were pitch black, without any light at all. It felt like a vast, boundless space of darkness. If he looked into them, he would feel like his soul would be sucked in. But in the next moment, specks of weak light suddenly appeared in the disheveled man's dark eyes. They flickered, as dazzling as the stars in the night sky. His eyes seemed to hide another space, another universe. Suddenly, the disheveled man's burly body jerked violently. He returned to his senses in a single instance, and his eyes immediately returned to normal. He cried out, "Oh no, Senior will definitely die this time. There's no chance for him to survive." With that, the disheveled man began to run in the direction Feng Yixiao had left in. A mysterious force seemed to surge out of the ground with every step he took, pushing him forward quickly. Although he was only an Earth Saint Master, he was actually faster than Heaven Saint Masters who could fly. Even wind-attributed 6th Cycle Heaven Saint Masters could not compare to him in terms of speed. In the Flame Mercenaries, Jianshun, Yu, Bai Lian, and Bai Hai all sat at the table and ate together. Even Dugu Feng, who served in the Flame Mercenaries, was present. Although Dugu Feng had been subdued by Jianshun in the training space of Mercenary City, Jianshun had always treated him like a brother. He had never treated him as an outsider. In reality, Dugu Feng had not let down Jianshun. He had set aside his cultivation to serve as the disciplinary elder of the Flame Mercenaries, dedicating himself to the development of the Flame Mercenaries. Dugu Feng was a man of few words. Therefore, he rarely spoke at the table. His entire person carried a bit of coldness. "Dugu Feng, it's really been hard on you in the past few years. You've even set aside your cultivation for the development of the Flame Mercenaries. If you want to set aside everything, you can find Bai Lian at any time. After all, your own cultivation is the most important thing. Great strength is even more useful than authority," Jianshun sincerely said. In his eyes, authority was not important. Even if you became the king of a kingdom, you would still have to act submissively before a saint ruler. Even the Qin Empire, one of the 8 great kingdoms, was nothing before an expert like the Holy Emperor. With a wave of his hand, many years of hard work would have been for naught. The Flame Mercenaries have basically stabilized now. I'll spend another 2 years to stabilize it, and after that, I'll set aside everything and focus on cultivation," Dugu Feng said emotionlessly. His voice was rather cold. Chapter 1204. A sliver of desire finally appeared in Dugu Feng's eyes. He yearned to reach the same level as the Holy Emperor. Jianshun's words had tempted him very much. It's a pity that Ken is out on a mission. Otherwise, there would be another person at the table. Speaking of which, Ken should be the captain of the Flame Mercenaries, Jianshun said with some regret. Although Ken's father, Kendall, founded the Flame Mercenaries, Ken is still weak. It'll be difficult for him to convince the others if he becomes the captain. At the same time, it might cause the Flame Mercenaries to disband, Dugu Feng said without any hesitation. Jianshun did not become angered. He said, "Let's let Ken grow up first. Once he has enough strength in the future, I'll let him take over as captain. That way, he'll inherit his father's legacy. At the same time, it'll be an explanation to Uncle Kendall." With that, Jianshun's eyes narrowed. He turned his head toward the east. His gaze seemed to be able to pierce through the obstructions of the buildings and see the world outside. Although he was in the room, nothing that happened outside could escape his eyes. Someone has come with ill intentions. "Looks like I've come at the right time," Jianshun softly murmured to himself as he slowly put down his cup. "What? Someone's come to make trouble for us?" Bai Lian obviously heard Jianshun's murmur as well. She was shocked. There was no one on the Tian Yuan continent who did not know about the Flame Mercenaries. Ever since the Flame Mercenaries had taken back Flame City from the Flame Extinguishing Alliance, they had established their great strength, making all the large organizations on the continent fear them. Even now, no one dared to provoke the Flame Mercenaries. As a result, Bai Lian even doubted if she had heard correctly when she heard Jian Chen's soft murmur. Bai Hai was also surprised. With the fame of Captain Jian Chen, who would dare to provoke him aside from the 10 Protector clans? Moreover, even the 10 Protector clans feared Jian Chen very much. Could it be that there's a power even greater than the 10 great guardian families? At this moment, Bai Hai actually had such a strange thought in his mind, but he immediately laughed self-deprecatingly. Suddenly, a tremendous presence descended from the sky, basically enveloping the entire city. The presence possessed the savagery and toughness of a vicious beast. At the same time, there seemed to be the deep howls of wolves. This was the powerful presence of a 9th heavenly layer saint ruler. It immediately suffocated countless mercenaries in the city. Many of them paled and felt like a mountain was pressing down on their chests, suffocating them. The mercenaries were not very powerful. There were only a handful of Heaven's Saint Masters, and most of them were not even Earth's Saint Masters, so they were unable to resist the presence of a saint ruler. A young man who seemed to be in his 30s hovered in the air above Flame City with his arms crossed. His eyes were cold, and he was emotionless. He only stared at the city lord's estate below. Who dares to act recklessly in Flame City? State your name. A loud shout rang out from the city lord's residence. Along with the voice, 5 old men shot into the air from different directions. They were as fast as lightning. With a flash, they disappeared without a trace. When they reappeared, they were already in the air, facing off against the young man who had come with ill intentions. The 5 saint rulers were all experts who had joined the Flame Mercenaries. They were the only saint rulers in the entire city aside from Bai Hai. The black-robed old man on one side clearly recognized the young man. His eyes narrowed, and his face became rather ugly. He sternly called out, "The greedy king, Feng Yixiao. It's actually you." The young man glared at the old man. He coldly smiled and said, "Gu Tu, I've searched for you for 50 whole years. I never thought that you would actually be hiding in the Flame Mercenaries. This really does surprise me. You managed to escape last time, so I'd like to see where you'll run off to this time." With that, Feng Yixiao's presence skyrocketed. The powerful energy that belonged to a 9th heavenly layer saint ruler leaked out from his body, vaguely condensing into a wolf that howled at the sky. Immediately, wild winds began to kick up in the surroundings as the energy of the world surged chaotically in the sky. The 5 saint rulers all became extremely stern. Deep fear filled their eyes. They could tell that Feng Yixiao had already reached the peak of the 9th heavenly layer just from his presence. He was a terrifying existence that was half a step away from reaching the level of the Holy Emperor. He was even more powerful than regular 9th heavenly layer saint rulers. On the other hand, the strongest among them had only just reached the 5th heavenly layer, while the weakest was only at the 2nd heavenly layer. The difference between them and Feng Yixiao was not small. If they really did fight, they would not be able to defeat Feng Yixiao even if they worked together. Feng Yixiao, this is the campsite of the Flame Mercenaries, and I, Gu Tu, am the great protector of the Flame Mercenaries. I will not tolerate your impudence. Could it be that you dare to offend the Flame Mercenaries and start a war with them?" Gu Tu shouted sternly. He had an irreconcilable grievance with Feng Yixiao. 50 years ago, he had almost died to Feng Yixiao's hands, but he had only managed to escape in the end. Now that Feng Yixiao had come looking for him, he was even more powerful than 50 years ago. He could not escape even if he wanted to. He could only use the name of the Flame Mercenaries to deter Feng Yixiao. The killing intent in Feng Yixiao's eyes became even heavier. He coldly said, "Gu Tu, this is a personal matter between the two of us. It has nothing to do with the Flame Mercenaries, so don't use the name of the Flame Mercenaries to scare me." Gu Tu laughed aloud. He looked at Feng Yixiao in a mocking manner and said, "It's rumored that the greedy wolf king Feng Yixiao fears nothing and does as he pleases. No one can stop him, and no one can change his mind. Looking at it today, it's just an undeserved reputation. He's actually been frightened by the name of the Flame Mercenaries. Feng Yixiao's gaze became even colder. His face was filled with malice as a powerful killing intent radiated from him at all. Gu Tu's words had infuriated him. Chapter 1205. Feng Yixiao had always been an unruly and prideful person, coupled with the fact that he was a mighty ninth heavenly layer saint ruler. How could he endure the provocation of someone who was as weak as an ant in his eyes? Even though he feared the Flame Mercenaries very much, he could not endure the mockery of an ant. Gu Tu, do you really think that I'll let you go just because you've joined the Flame Mercenaries? Wrong. You underestimate me far too much. Anyone that I want to kill must die. Feng Yixiao coldly said. Feng Yixiao said coldly. With that, he had already left behind a blur, charging towards Gu Tu with great speed. He arrived beside Gu Tu in a single instance and extended his right hand towards Gu Tu's throat. Surging power of God surged from his right hand, and it seemed to have transformed into an extremely sharp wolf claw. Gu Tu never thought that Feng Yixiao would actually be bold enough to attack him here. He paled in fright as he retreated as quickly as he could, dodging Feng Yixiao's lightning-fast claw with everything he had. The difference in strength between him and Feng Yixiao was just too great. It was not an exaggeration to describe it as a chasm. The only thing Gu Tu could do was dodge Feng Yixiao's attack. He did not even have the ability to block it. Blood splattered in the air. Even though Gu Tu had used everything he had, he was still unable to completely dodge Feng Yixiao's attack. His neck had been reduced to a bloody mess by Feng Yixiao's claw, and a large chunk of flesh had been ripped off. It was a terrifying sight. Warm blood spurted from Gu Tu's neck like a fountain, blooming into a beautiful flower in the air. Gu Tu held the wound on his neck with one hand as he retreated. His eyes were filled with intense fear. The wound on his neck was fatal to Heaven's Saint Masters, but as a saint ruler, they would not die even if their bodies rotted away as long as their souls remained. Greedy King, why? You're declaring war on the Flame Mercenaries. The great captain will never let you go. Gu Tu shouted as he flew backwards in a panic. As his throat had suffered a serious injury, his voice was hoarse. Feng Yixiao remained silent. His face was sunken, filled with coldness and heavy, killing intent. With a single movement, he shot past the four other saint rulers and pursued Gu Tuesday. Greedy King, you're too impudent. You actually dare to declare war on the Flame Mercenaries. Four great protectors, please immediately teach the greedy king a lesson and protect the authority of the Flame Mercenaries. The dignity and honor of our Flame Mercenaries cannot be trampled upon by the greedy king in such an unbridled manner. Otherwise, once the captain blames us, none of us will be able to bear the consequences. Gu Tu anxiously called out. He wanted to persuade the four other saint rulers to keep the king of greed busy. The four saint rulers immediately shivered inside when they heard the word captain. The light in their eyes began to flicker as they became hesitant. They all felt fear and respect for the captain of the Flame Mercenaries, who had reached the level of the Holy Emperor. If the captain blames them, they really would not be able to bear the consequences. Perhaps because he sensed the change in their minds, Feng Yixiao suddenly turned around and glanced at them coldly. The four saint rulers felt their hearts skip a beat when they saw that glance. They trembled all over. At that moment, the four of them actually felt like they were suffocating, which made them feel extremely shocked. This was not the first time the four of them had experienced something like this. However, only the Holy Emperor could make them feel so fearful, yet they could actually feel it from Feng Yixiao right now. The four of them found it rather unbelievable. This greedy King Feng Yixiao should be able to successfully break through to the level of the Holy Emperor very soon. At this moment, the four of them thought the same thing at the same time. They also felt some envy. Four protectors, listen up. This is a personal enmity between me and Gu Tuesday. It has nothing to do with you. If you interfere, then don't blame me for not giving the Flame Mercenaries any face. Feng Yixiao said coldly before continuing his pursuit of Gu Tuesday. The four protectors all remained where they were. They did not move no matter how Gu Tu tried to incite them. They feared Feng Yixiao's strength, and since he had already said something like that, they would not be stupid enough to seek their own deaths. Gu Tu was unable to fight back at all before Feng Yixiao. He was covered in wounds now. Aside from the wound on his neck, Feng Yixiao had even scratched a fist-sized hole in his chest. His heart had already disappeared, reduced to mush in Feng Yixiao's hands. He had lost one of his arms, so he was in an extremely horrible state. Gu Tu, I'd like to see how you'll escape this time. But don't worry, I won't kill you immediately. I'll torture you viciously, and then you'll die in excruciating pain. Feng Yixiao sneered. His right hand seemed to have transformed into a sharp wolf's claw as it constantly swept across Gu Tu's body, causing chunks of flesh and blood to fly into the air. Gu Tu was like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. He could not help but shriek out miserably from the intense pain. He hissed, "Greedy king, the captain won't spare you. If you kill me today, you'll end up like me before long. I'll be waiting for you in hell." With that, Gu Tu produced another grunt. A piece of flesh on his waist had been ripped off by Feng Yixiao. "Stop! How can I let you humiliate a great protector of the flame mercenaries like this?" An old but loud voice suddenly rang out from the city lord's estate. Afterward, an old man furiously flew into the sky. He radiated with a heavy and powerful presence. Feng Yixiao glanced at Baihai, who had flown up from below. He said, "Another 7th heavenly layer saint ruler has come, but you still can't stop me. Gu Tu, I originally wanted you to live a little longer, but it looks like I have no choice but to finish you off immediately to avoid unnecessary trouble." Feng Yixiao stopped tormenting Gu Tuesday. With a thought, the space around Gu Tu suddenly froze, trapping his bloodied body. He was unable to move at all. This was a spatial technique used by a 9th heavenly layer saint ruler. The frozen space was so tough that even Gu Tu needed to use his full strength to break through it several times in his peak condition. Now that he was heavily injured, he could not even use 30% of his strength, so he was helpless against the frozen space. All he could do was watch as the murderous greedy king rapidly approached him. "Baihai, save me!" Gu Tu cried out for help in a panic. He was filled with fear before the threat of death. Unfortunately, as soon as he had finished speaking, Feng Yixiao's right hand had already stabbed deeply into his head. Gu Tu suddenly froze before becoming limp, as if he had lost all his strength. His widened eyes rapidly lost their luster as well. His soul was unable to escape in time, having been wiped out by greedy king. "How dare you? Sir, you're the first person who dares to kill a great protector of the flame mercenaries so openly." Baihai roared out. He was utterly furious. At the same time, a huge sword that was as wide as a palm appeared in his hand. Pure and powerful water-attributed saint force coiled around the huge sword. Terrifying pulses of energy caused the surrounding space to tremble slightly, beginning to distort. Fourth move of the traceless water, Soul Chase. Baihai also knew that Feng Yixiao was very powerful, so he bellowed out and directly used a saint tier battle skill. Immediately, a tremendous pressure descended from the sky, crushing down on Feng Yixiao like an invisible mountain. The tremendous pressure caused Feng Yixiao's body to sink slightly in the air. The battle skills of the Bai family had a total of 4 moves, which are the human tier, earth tier, heaven tier, and saint tier. The 4th saint tier battle skill was split into 2 moves. The first was an offensive move, Soul Chase, while the second was an escape technique, Absolute Rebirth. Baihai was completely enveloped by a dense layer of blue light. He raised his huge sword high into the air before slashing out with lightning-like speed. The strike easily ripped through space, causing the space before him to rip apart like a piece of paper. It extended toward Feng Yixiao at an unbelievable speed. If one were to sense it carefully, it would not be difficult to discover that there was an indiscernible ripple of energy hidden within the rapidly expanding space. It was the ripple of energy that caused space to constantly rip apart. Although it did not create an earth-shaking disturbance, its great power was clearly visible. Feng Yixiao pulled his right hand out of Gu Tu's head. He did not even glance at Gu Tu's corpse, allowing it to fall to the ground. He said, "I never thought you would know a Saint-tier battle skill as well. It really is powerful. With your strength at the 7th heavenly layer, it's more than enough to deal with regular 9th heavenly layer experts. Unfortunately, you've encountered me, the avaricious king, Feng Yixiao." The avaricious king remained composed against Bai Hai's Saint-tier battle skill. He directly threw out a punch, and surging energy surged out from his fist. It immediately condensed into a wolf that collided with Bai Hai's Saint-tier battle skill. The energy wolf collided with a sword wave that could easily cut through space. The two of them actually disappeared without a sound. They didn't even cause any ripples. They turned back into waves of heaven and earth yuan qi and dissipated between heaven and earth. Chapter 1206. Bai Hai's Saint-tier battle skill had been easily nullified by Feng Yixiao. Not only had Bai Hai been rendered speechless by such a shocking scene, but even the 4 other saint rulers who had joined the flame mercenaries revealed disbelief. They knew that Feng Yixiao was extremely powerful. Even if the 4 of them worked together, they would not be his opponent. However, Bai Hai was a 7th heavenly layer saint ruler after all. Although he was not Feng Yixiao's opponent, he had closed the gap by a lot. Coupled with Bai Hai's peerless saint-tier battle skill, even a peak expert who was about to reach the level of Holy Emperor would pose a certain threat to him. However, Feng Yixiao had actually nullified Bai Hai's Saint-tier battle skill with a casual strike. Such a terrifying ability deeply shocked everyone present. This was because, in their opinion, only a supreme expert who had reached the level of Holy Emperor could nullify the Saint-tier battle skill of a 7th heavenly layer saint ruler so effortlessly. Feng Yixiao did not do anything else. He glanced at Bai Hai indifferently and said, "Since my enemy is dead, it's time for me to bid farewell." With that, Feng Yixiao turned around and flew off into the distance. He had heard of the name of the Flame Mercenaries, so he did not want to completely offend such a powerful organization. However, at this moment, Feng Yixiao suddenly froze. He came to a halt in the air as well. His composed face became extremely stern at that moment, and he suddenly turned around. His eyes shone with a shocking light as he looked in the direction of the city lord's estate. A meter-long strand of black sword qi suddenly appeared, shooting towards Feng Yixiao with lightning-like speed. The sword qi was like a streak of light as it gave off a shocking presence. A presence filled with violence and destruction radiated from the sword qi, causing space to crack and the energy of the world to tremble as if it was afraid. It shocked the saint rulers and Feng Yixiao to the point of shivering. Feng Yixiao became extremely stern. Due to the special nature of his cultivation method, he possessed sharpness and intuition far greater than ordinary people. He could sense the threat of death from the black sword qi that had shot out from the city lord's estate. The pressing presence and cold, killing intent from the sword qi made him feel suffocated. The black sword qi shot over extremely quickly. It was so fast that Feng Yixiao did not even have the ability to dodge. It pierced through his chest like it was tofu, leaving behind a fist-sized hole. A grunt rang out from Feng Yixiao's throat. He vomited a large mouthful of blood, which turned into a bloody mist that drifted down from the sky. His face became extremely pale at that moment, and he could no longer maintain the ability to hover. He plummeted from the sky, quickly smashing towards the ground. Bang! With a thud, Feng Yixiao heavily smashed into the ground, creating a deep pit in the mud that was not very tough. Dust was kicked into the air. The saint rulers of the Flame Mercenaries were all stunned by this sudden development. None of them had thought that the mighty Feng Yixiao would be so fragile before the sword qi. "Captain! It's Captain! The captain has returned." Very soon, a saint ruler thought of something and cried out in joy. Only Captain Jianshun possesses that terrifying presence filled with violence and destruction on the Tianyuan continent. Fantastic! I never thought that Captain Jianshun would actually return at such a crucial moment. With Captain Jianshun here, this Feng Yixiao is dead for sure. Our flame mercenaries are not so easy to bully. Other than Bai Hai, the four other saint rulers were all overjoyed. Although they had not seen Jianshun, they were extremely familiar with the chaotic force that Jianshun used. This was because the chaotic force that had never appeared on the Tianyuan continent before had already become a symbol of Jianshun's identity. No one recognized the chaotic force. However, the unique presence of the chaotic force had already been recognized by many experts on the Tianyuan continent. Outside the city, Feng Yixiao crawled out of the pit with great difficulty. He knelt on the ground with a pale face as his body gently trembled uncontrollably. His face was filled with pain as blood spurted from the wound on his chest like a fountain, dyeing the ground red. Feng Yixiao was in excruciating pain. When the sword chi had passed through his chest, a small strand of chaotic force had remained his body, wildly destroying it. His organs and meridians had all been reduced to rags by the chaotic force. Even if Feng Yixiao tried his best to control the energy within him to resist the chaotic force that was wreaking havoc in his body, it was useless. He was unable to stop the chaotic force at all, nor was he able to wipe it out. Jianshun, I never thought that the captain of the Flame Mercenaries would actually be in Flame City today, Feng Yixiao said in a deep voice. He had heard many rumors about Jianshun, so he immediately guessed the identity of the expert who had shot out the black sword chi. A white-robed figure quickly flew toward Feng Yixiao, stopping 3 steps away from him in the end. He was a young man who seemed to be in his 20s. He was brimming with heroic spirit and handsome features. His eyes were cold, and he did not give off the presence of an expert at all. He seemed like an ordinary person. The young man stood with his hands behind his back. He stared at the kneeling Feng Yixiao and said, "You sure are bold to kill people in my flame mercenaries as a mere saint ruler." Feng Yixiao raised his head and stared at the young man. The moment he saw the young man's face, his eyes narrowed slightly. Although this was the first time he had seen the young man, he had seen the young man's portrait countless times. "Jianshun, it really is you," Feng Yixiao growled as he sighed inside about his bad luck. Feng Yixiao had dared to come to the Flame Mercenaries alone to kill Gu Tu because he was certain that the captain of the mercenaries, Jianshun, was not in the city. Coupled with the fact that he had grown tired of roaming the world and was on the verge of breaking through recently, he planned on killing his enemy before going deep into the mountains to cultivate. At that time, even if Jianshun was omnipotent, he would not be able to find him. Chapter 12:07. Jianshun, this is a personal enmity between me and Gu Tuesday. It has nothing to do with your flame mercenaries. Do you want to interfere with my enmity with Gu Tu? Feng Yixiao growled. Even though he knew that the person before him was an undefeatable expert, Feng Yixiao was not afraid at all. Your enmity with Gu Tu has nothing to do with me. But Gu Tu is a member of the Flame Mercenaries after all. How can I just let someone kill a member of the mercenaries so easily? Moreover, you've killed Gu Tu in front of all the members of the mercenaries, Jianshun said. He spoke in an extremely indifferent tone. Feng Yixiao knew that he was done for today with that. He gritted his teeth and said with some reluctance, "Jianshun, you should have noticed me before I died. With your abilities, you probably discovered me as soon as I arrived. So why didn't you appear before I killed Gu Tu? Why did you wait until I killed Gu Tu before dealing with me?" At this moment, Bai Hai and the 4 other saint rulers arrived behind Jianshun as well. The 4 of them looked at Jianshun with undisguised admiration as well as a sliver of fear. Jianshun no longer glanced at Feng Yixiao. He turned around and made his way toward the city. He indifferently said, "Execute him on the spot." "Yes, Captain." The 4 saint rulers all responded. Excitement filled their eyes. Killing a 9th heavenly layer saint ruler was definitely a great stimulation to them, as well as a great honor. Bai Hai glanced at the kneeling Feng Yixiao with some pity. He gently shook his head before turning around and making his way toward the city as well. Bai Hai found it extremely regretful that an expert who was about to break through to the level of Holy Emperor would die here. The Holy Emperor was a supreme realm that Bai Hai had yearned to reach for a very long time. The 4 saint rulers of the Flame Mercenaries all smiled viciously. They had been intimidated by Feng Yixiao before, so they could only watch helplessly as their companions were killed. They felt extremely sullen inside, and now they could finally avenge themselves. Looks like the heavens want me dead today. To think that I, Feng Yixiao, have wandered the world for so many years and killed countless experts. Even experts who were far more powerful than me failed to take my life. I never thought that I would actually die at the hands of a few ants in the end. How pitiful. How lamentable. Feng Yixiao sighed at the sky. His face was filled with reluctance. Although he had only been struck by a single strike from Jinshin's sword, his wounds were extraordinarily severe. Destructive chaotic force wreaked havoc in his body, and he was unable to suppress it at all. His wounds rapidly worsened with each passing second. He had already lost the ability to fight now. Although he could escape with his soul, Feng Yixiao did not believe he could escape from Jinshin. The final outcome could not be changed. The four saint rulers all smiled viciously as they raised their saint weapons. Killing a ninth heavenly layer saint ruler was something they took great pride in. As a result, the four of them decided to deal with Feng Yixiao together. Stop! At this moment, a shout rang out from the distance. Due to the great distance, the voice was extremely weak by the time it reached Feng Yixiao, but they still heard it clearly. Jinshin trembled slightly. He suddenly turned his head in the direction of the voice and saw a black speck suddenly appear on the horizon. It was currently rushing over with lightning speed. Although it was very far away, Jinshin was still able to see it clearly with his eyesight. Immediately, a profound light erupted from his indifferent eyes. He stared fixedly at the black speck as disbelief filled his face. The four saint rulers did not care who it was. They swung their saint weapons, aiming for Feng Yixiao's heart, throat, head, and forehead. Feng Yixiao could only watch as the four saint weapons rapidly approached him. He had been injured by the chaotic force, so he did not even have the power to dodge. Stop! Don't harm Senior Feng. The voice rang out from the distance once again. It was filled with worry, but it was unable to stop the four saint rulers from attacking Feng Yixiao. Jinshin's face changed slightly when he heard that. Without any hesitation, he immediately flicked his finger, and 4 weak strands of sword chi struck the saint weapons of the four saint rulers with lightning-like speed. Ding! 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 With the crisp sound of metal clashing, the saint weapons of the four saint rulers were knocked off course by Jinshin's sword chi when they were about to strike Feng Yixiao. They brushed past Feng Yixiao by a hair's breadth before heavily smashing into the ground. With a boom, a huge crater appeared in the ground. The four saint rulers stared at Jinshin in surprise. They were confused. "The four of you stand down," Jinshin said as he stared at the figure running over from the distance. "Yes, Captain." Jinshin's orders were like an imperial edict. The four saint rulers responded politely and obediently took a few steps back after putting away their saint weapons. Even though they were filled with doubt, none of them dared to ask. The person in the distance drew closer and closer. Gradually, they could see his appearance. He was a man in tattered clothes with disheveled hair, but he was extremely burly. His messy hair covered most of his face, and the small part of his face that was exposed was dirty and covered in dust. He seemed like a beggar. The four saint rulers of the Flame Mercenaries could not help but look at the disheveled man running over from afar. They were extremely curious. They wondered just who this person was to actually be able to change the mind of their captain who had already given the order to kill Feng Yixiao, to the point where he had personally knocked aside their saint weapon and saved Feng Yixiao. However, when their gazes landed on the large man, a gleam of light flashed through their eyes at the same time. With their strength as saint rulers, they could obviously tell that the large man was only a puny Earth Saint Master with a single glance. However, he ran extremely quickly. Even the wind-attributed Heaven Saint Masters who had reached the 6th cycle could not catch up to him. It was impossible for an Earth Saint Master to erupt with such speed, even with a Heaven-tier battle skill. The ragged beggar-like man rushed over to Feng Yixiao's side with lightning speed. As if he did not notice the people standing beside him, he crouched down and helped the heavily injured Feng Yixiao up. He asked worriedly, "Senior Feng, are you all right?" Feng Yixiao obviously recognized the disheveled man who had just parted ways with him. A sliver of surprise flashed through his eyes as he weakly said, "Kid, how did you get here? And how did you catch up?" "Senior Feng, I immediately sensed that your life was in danger after you left, so I immediately chased after you. Fortunately, I wasn't too late," the disheveled man sternly replied. The disheveled man said with a straight face. He secretly heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. He was very glad that he had come in time. "Silly kid, how can you control something that even I, Feng Yixiao, can't deal with? Leave immediately, or you'll probably be dragged down by me and end up in trouble," Feng Yixiao said feebly as he coughed blood. As he spoke, he coughed up blood. His wounds continued to worsen, making it rather difficult for him to even speak. He even suspected that even if Jianxun did not kill him, he would not be able to last for half an incense stick's worth of time. If it were not for the fact that he was a true holy emperor, he might have been able to temporarily suppress the sliver of chaotic force within him if he used his full strength. Unfortunately, he was still half a step away from becoming a holy emperor. Jianxun stood there as he stared at the disheveled man blankly. His eyes were wide open as disbelief filled his face. Chapter 1208. Chanyang, who was stunned when he heard the extremely familiar voice. He instinctively raised his head and looked at Jianxun. With a single glance, he recognized the handsome young man as his fourth brother, Changyang Shoten, whom he had not seen in many years. Surprise immediately filled his eyes as he said in surprise, "Fourth brother, why is it you?" However, Chanyang, who soon spotted the great walls of Flame City that were completely forged from tungsten alloy. He came to a realization. He had never thought that he would end up with the Flame Mercenaries after tailing Feng Yixiao. Jianxun arrived before Chanyang, who in a single stride. He stared at Chanyang, who in both excitement and doubt. "Big brother, didn't you go to the Pure Heart Pavilion? Why have you suddenly appeared here and ended up like this?" "Did the Pure Heart Pavilion?" Jianxun paused, but the meaning behind his words was obvious. Everyone present understood what he meant. Jianxun suspected that Chanyang, who had been kicked out of the Pure Heart Pavilion. Otherwise, how could a disciple of one of the 10 great protector clans end up in such a miserable state, where he did not even have a decent set of clothes? Feng Yixiao immediately became shocked when he heard Jianxun's words. He had never thought that the interesting kid he had met along the way would actually be a disciple of the Pure Heart Pavilion. Moreover, Feng Yixiao's other identity left him extremely shocked. He was actually the big brother of the captain of the Flame Mercenaries, Jianxun. Feng Yixiao found this to be unbelievable. Chanyang, who obviously guessed what Jianxun meant. He shook his head gently and said, "Fourth brother, it's not what you think. Let's talk about this later." Chanyang, who paused. He glanced at the heavily injured and pained Feng Yixiao and said, "Fourth brother, do you have some grievances with Senior Feng? Why have you injured Senior Feng like this?" Jianxun glanced at Feng Yixiao with mixed feelings. He asked, "Big brother, do the two of you know each other?" Chanyang, who checked Feng Yixiao's wounds as he said, "Fourth brother, Senior Feng has saved my life before. Can you spare Senior Feng for Big brother's sake?" Jianxun agreed to Chanyang, whose request without any hesitation. Afterwards, he strode over to Feng Yixiao and gently pressed his hand on Feng Yixiao's shoulder, sucking out the remaining strand of chaotic force in his body. Without the torment of the chaotic force, Feng Yixiao immediately became much more relaxed. However, he was shocked by the energy Jianxun had used. It was just too terrifying. If the energy continued to remain in his body, he probably would have died to it without needing anyone else to do anything. The 4 saint rulers of the Flame Mercenaries looked at each other. They had never thought that something like this would happen. Feng Yixiao, who had come aggressively to kill the Flame Mercenaries, was actually acquainted with Jianxun's elder brother, Changyang Hu. The 4 of them felt extremely speechless. Bai Hai remained very calm, as if he did not care that Feng Yixiao had killed a great protector of the Flame Mercenaries. With a flip of his hand, Jianxun pulled out 3 thumb-sized pills from his space ring and passed them to Feng Yixiao. He said, "Since you've saved my elder brother's life, I won't pursue the matter of you killing a protector of the flame mercenaries. Here are 3 Class 6 Radiant Spirit Pills. They may not be able to completely heal you, but they can help you recover some battle prowess. I have my own healing pills. Feng Yixiao did not accept the pills from Jinshin. Instead, he pulled out a jade bottle from his space ring and poured all the pills into his mouth before immediately circulating his energy to heal. He was extremely heavily injured. Although his chaotic force had been sucked back by Jinshin, he needed to control his wounds as quickly as possible. Otherwise, if his wounds continued to worsen, there might even be side effects that would be difficult to heal. Jinshin awkwardly put away the Radiant Spirit Pills before saying to Chan Yonghu, "Brother, let's return to Flame City. It's been many years since we've seen each other. Let's go back and catch up." Chan Yonghu was rather tempted. He had indeed not seen Jinshin in a very long time, so there were many things he wanted to talk about. However, when his gaze landed on Feng Yixiao, who sat on the ground and healed, a sliver of hesitation appeared on his face. He said, "Brother, I'll watch over Senior Feng for now. Once Senior Feng recovers, I'll go to Flame City." Jinshin nodded before letting the 4 saint rulers return by themselves. He stayed behind with Chan Yonghu. After bidding farewell to Chan Yonghu, Bai Hai returned to Flame City as well. For hours later, Feng Yixiao opened his eyes. His face was still rather pale. After 4 hours of healing, his wounds had not completely healed, but he had recovered some battle prowess. During that time, Jinshin and Chan Yonghu chatted for a while and finally understood Chan Yonghu's current situation. However, as soon as he thought about how his brother might forget about their brotherhood in the future, Jinshin felt pained inside. In reality, Jinshin had already discovered these things from Chan Yonghu many years ago. Before Chan Yonghu's limbs had recovered, he had already displayed an abnormal state of mind. However, he had never thought that after so many years, Chan Yonghu would progress further and further on this path. He had already severed all his emotions, leaving behind only this single emotion. "Senior Feng, you've woken up. How are your wounds?" Chan Yonghu stopped chatting with Jinshin when he saw Feng Yixiao open his eyes. He arrived beside Feng Yixiao and asked in concern. Now that Feng Yixiao's gaze toward Chan Yonghu had changed slightly, he could not help but chuckle when he heard Chan Yonghu's concerned greeting. He stood up and said, "I've recovered by 30%, so running is no problem. Kid, I never thought that your identity would be so extraordinary. It really does surprise me. I saved your life a few days ago, and now that you've saved mine, we don't owe each other anything. All right, let's not talk too much. Farewell. I hope you'll still remember me the next time we meet." "Senior Feng, I'll definitely remember you the next time we meet," Chan Yonghu called out at Feng Yixiao's departing figure. Jinshin frowned slightly when he heard that. He became more and more worried. He had no idea if Chan Yonghu would still care about their brotherhood and familial ties when they met again in a few years. "Brother, why don't you stop walking this path and cultivate in a different way? I can help you find a sacred cultivation method that suits you," Jinshin said with some concern. He did not want his brother to end up like that. Chan Yonghu gently sighed. "Brother, I can't stop now. I feel like there's no other path for me to take apart from this one. And even if I don't want to take this path, there's a mysterious force that's secretly pushing me forward." Jinshin fell silent. He had already realized that his brother's fate seemed to have been decided by the heavens. It was impossible to change anything. Jinshin and Chan Yonghu both felt rather gloomy because of this matter. Neither of them said anything after that. Unknowingly, the two of them had returned to the city lord's estate at the same time. "Brother, I heard that you let the troublemaker go. Is that true?" As soon as they returned to the city lord estate, Bai Lian pulled on Jinshin's arm and asked. Jinshin nodded. "Because Feng Yixiao saved brother's life, so I let him go." "Brother?" Bai Lian was confused, but then she saw Chan Yonghu, who was dressed like a beggar beside Jinshin. She was stunned at first before her mouth dropped open. She studied Chan Yonghu from head to toe as her bright eyes were filled with disbelief. "Brother Ahu, why is it you? Why you? Why are you dressed like that?" Bai Lian's mouth dropped open as she asked in surprise. Yi walked in as well. When she recognized the person in tattered clothes as Chang Yong-hu, she was shocked as well. Chang Yong-hu lowered his head and looked at the tattered clothes on him. He smiled indifferently and said, "What's wrong with this? I feel pretty good." Bai Lian stumbled when she heard Chang Yong-hu's words, almost falling to the ground. Even Yu was speechless. Jianchen could not help but laugh aloud as well. His annoyance was completely swept away. He said, "Lian, get someone to prepare some food and wine. I want to have a few good drinks with brother." "All right, I'll arrange it immediately." "All right, brother, why didn't you save Great Protector Gu too? Why did you have to wait until he was dead before making a move?" Bai Lian asked curiously. "Lian, you need to understand that our flame mercenaries is not a refuge. We come in when there's trouble and leave when the trouble is dealt with. That Gu Tu didn't have good intentions when he came to our mercenaries. He wanted to use us to stop his enemies. Once we destroy his enemies, Gu Tu will probably leave our mercenaries as well. I'm doing this today to give people with such thoughts a warning. Just be careful when you accept people in the future," said Jianchen. "I understand, brother." Due to Chang Yong-hu's unexpected return, Jianshan left Flame City ahead of time. The space gate that the Extinguishing Alliance had constructed when they occupied Flame City had been repaired as well. That afternoon, Chang Yong-hu put on a clean set of clothes and returned to Changyang Prefecture with Jianshan and Yu through the space gate in Flame City. Chapter 1209. After Jianshan returned to Changyang Prefecture, he learned that Changyang Zhu Yunkong had already left. He had gone to Mercenary City alone and had only left behind a single sentence. He would not return until he had reached the level of the Holy Emperor. Jianshan understood that Changyang Zhu Yunkong had probably been greatly affected by what had happened in Changyang Prefecture. He desperately wanted to increase his strength because only experts like the Holy Emperor had the right to speak before the Protector clans. Jianshan spent a day with his brother in Changyang Prefecture. 2 days had already passed since he had to go to the Bloodsword sect. Only 1 day remained. The next morning, Jianshan got Yu to stay in Changyang Prefecture. Afterwards, he asked Ruijin to construct a space gate that led to the ocean before leaving by himself. Jianshan identified his bearings on the boundless ocean before flying toward Three Saint Island as quickly as he could. Shangguan Aojian's chubby face constantly appeared in his head. Jianshan still found the matter of him suddenly having a son to be unreal. He had never thought that the heavenly enchantress would actually give birth to a child for him, and the child would even possess the innate chaotic body. At this moment, Shangguan Aojian sat on a piece of white rock on Three Saint Island's Three Saint Mountain. His eyes were closed, and he seemed to be cultivating. Before Shangguan Aojian, Qin Qin, Xiao Qian, Xiao Yu, and the heavenly enchantress all stared at the closed Shangguan Aojian. Their gazes were filled with love and undisguised concern. At this moment, Shangguan Aojian slowly opened his eyes. He could not help but become slightly doubtful when he saw his 3 sisters and mother staring at him nervously. He scratched his head and asked in a clear voice, "Mother, Sister Xiao Qian, Sister Xiao Yu, Sister Qin Qin, why are you all staring at me like that?" Qin Qin, Xiao Qian, Xiao Yu, and the heavenly enchantress all became surprised when they saw Shangguan Aojian open his eyes. Xiao Qian asked in surprise, "Xiao Bao, you just ingested a pill refined from a 10,000-year-old heavenly resource an hour ago. Has the effects of the pill run out so quickly?" It's over. These pills are becoming less and less effective for Xiao Bao. Back then, when Xiao Bao ingested a 1,000-year-old heavenly resource, he could last for most of the day before the effects completely ran out. Now, a pill refined from a 10,000-year-old heavenly resource can only last for an hour. This is a pill that can allow people who can't cultivate to undergo a complete transformation, yet it's completely useless to Xiao Bao. Is Xiao Bao destined to live out his life peacefully? Xiao Yu sighed. Shangguan Aojian stood up from the rock in dissatisfaction when he heard Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu's words. He placed his hands on his hips and said loudly, "Sister Xiao Qian, Sister Xiao Yu, Xiao Bao isn't trash. He's the most powerful innate chaotic body in the world. And the effects of those heavenly resources didn't run out either. Instead, they were absorbed by Xiao Bao. Xiao Bao seemed to think of something when he reached there. He happily announced, "Also, Xiao Bao has a name now. It's Shangwan Aojian." Xiao Qian, Xiao Yu, and Qin Qin became curious. Qin Qin said, "The most powerful innate chaotic body in the world? Xiao Bao, what's the innate chaotic body? Where did you hear that from? Why haven't I heard you mention it before? Also, Master doesn't seem to have given you the name Shangwan Aojian." Xiao Yu pinched Shangwan Aojian's cheeks lovingly. She stared at Xiao Bao with her large, bright eyes and said, Yeah, Xiao Bao, Master definitely didn't give you the name Shangwan Aojian, right? Otherwise, Master would definitely have told us. Xiao Bao is so smart. I think Xiao Bao must have come up with the name himself, right? Xiao Qian giggled. In other words, this innate chaotic body, or whatever was named by Xiao Bao himself, right? The three girls constantly chattered around Xiao Bao. All of them were very fond of Xiao Bao. No, it's all my father's. Shangwan Aojian puffed up his cheeks. He wanted to explain that his father was the one who had told him about the innate chaotic body. His father had also given him the name Shangwan Aojian. He even wanted to tell the three sisters that he had a father. Enough. Xiao Bao, eat this 10,000-year-old ginseng. However, the heavenly enchantress covered Xiao Bao's mouth before he could finish his sentence. She then took out a 10,000-year-old ginseng from her space ring. Seeing the heavenly treasure, Xiao Bao's eyes lit up. He immediately threw the unfinished words to the back of his mind. He took the 10,000-year-old ginseng and wolfed it down. After finishing the ginseng, he sat cross-legged on the rock and entered a state of cultivation. Although Xiao Bao didn't finish his sentence, Xiao Qian and the other two clearly heard the word daddy. They all revealed puzzled expressions. Xiao Bao actually mentioned his father earlier. Did I hear wrong? Master, what's going on? Why does it feel like Xiao Bao has changed so much after you took him out? He even changed his name for no reason. Xiao Yu asked the heavenly enchantress. She was extremely curious. The heavenly enchantress' expression became rather unnatural. She avoided Xiao Yu's eyes, rather afraid to look at her. She just turned around and said nonchalantly, I came across an expert this time and accidentally learned that Xiao Bao's constitution was not a cripple. Instead, he possessed the innate chaotic body. The expert passed on a cultivation method to him as well. However, cultivating a constitution like that requires a large number of heavenly resources. The resources required for cultivation are extremely vast. Is that true? Is Xiao Bao really not a cripple who can't cultivate? That's just fantastic. Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu rejoiced when they heard that. Only Qin Qin glanced past the heavenly enchantress back and Xiao Bao's face from time to time as the light in her eyes flickered. An hour passed very quickly. Xiao Bao opened his eyes after refining the ginseng again. He stared at the heavenly enchantress eagerly and said, Mother, I want more. Be good, Xiao Bao. It's not good to eat too many heavenly resources. Don't eat them today. You can eat them tomorrow. Xiao Qian could not help but worry when she saw how much Shangwan Aojian ate. If he ate too many heavenly resources, it would leave behind hidden injuries. The heavenly enchantress smiled and stared at Xiao Bao lovingly. Just when she was about to take out a few more heavenly resources from her space ring, her face suddenly changed and she vanished from the mountain with a flash. 10 kilometers away from the island, Jianshan was stopped by the heavenly enchantress who had suddenly appeared. The heavenly enchantress stared at Jianshan cautiously. She just happened to block Jianshan's path to the island. What are you doing here? The heavenly enchantress was hostile, as if she did not welcome Jianshan's arrival. Jianshan was filled with mixed feelings as he stared at the heavenly enchantress figure. After learning that the heavenly enchantress had given birth to a child for him, Jianshan actually felt like he had no idea how to face the heavenly enchantress. I'll come to see my son. After a moment of silence, Jianshan still stated his intentions. Go back. Three Saint Island does not welcome you in the future. The heavenly enchantress rejected Jianshan without any hesitation. She left no room for negotiation. Xiao Bao seemed to sense something and suddenly stood up on the rock. He turned around and stared in Jianshan's direction. Although they were 20 to 30 kilometers away, Xiao Bao could still clearly see Jianshan. He immediately smiled happily. Daddy, Daddy, I'm here, I'm here. Although Xiao Bao had only seen Jianshan once, he was extraordinarily close to Jianshan. He bounced up and down on the rock as he constantly waved in Jianshan's direction, as if he was afraid that Jianshan could not see him. Daddy, Daddy, I'm here. Xiao Bao kept shouting. What was surprising was that even though his voice wasn't loud, it traveled very far. It actually didn't dissipate even after traveling 20 to 30 kilometers. It continued to travel even further. Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu were stunned. They stared blankly at Xiao Bao, who was jumping up and down on the rock and waving his hand in the distance. Their faces were filled with disbelief. They had clearly heard Xiao Bao call out Daddy, which made them wonder if they had heard wrongly. Chapter 12:10. Jianshan immediately beamed with joy when he heard Xiao Bao's voice. He was slightly excited as well. He immediately used the illusory flash and took a step forward. He left behind an afterimage as he hurried toward the Three Saints Mountain as quickly as he could. The heavenly enchantress returned to her senses and watched Jianshan rapidly approach the mountain. She was conflicted. She was confident that she could stop Jianshan from reaching the island, or even keep him outside, but she would definitely end up fighting with Jianshan if she did that. However, she also did not want to stop Jianshan, which made her feel rather conflicted. Jianshan moved extremely quickly, crossing over 20 kilometers in the blink of an eye. In that moment of hesitation, Jianshan had already arrived on the mountain. It was too late for the heavenly enchantress to stop him now. Daddy, Daddy, you're finally here. I've missed Daddy so much, Xiao Bao happily called out. Xiao Bao cheered happily. He jumped down from the rock nimbly and skipped over to Jianshan. He raised his hands and said, Daddy, hug me. Jianshan showed a sliver of affection that had never appeared on his face before when he saw Xiao Bao's chubby and adorable face. He picked Xiao Bao up in one go. He was so emotional that he was speechless. Qin stared at Jianshan and Xiao Bao with mixed feelings. Although she had guessed that Xiao Bao's identity would end up like this, it was only a guess after all. She actually felt a faint pain in the depths of her heart when it became reality. Jianshan's arrival should have been something worth celebrating for Qin, but it was the exact opposite. She was unable to celebrate no matter what. Instead, she became rather gloomy. Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu failed to notice Qin's change. They had already become stunned by Xiao Bao's words. They stared at Xiao Bao, who was in Jianshan's arms, and calling him Daddy so intimately. Their minds had completely stopped working. Xiao Qian finally returned to her senses quite a while later. She refused to believe that Jianshan was Xiao Bao's father no matter what. She thought that Xiao Bao had called him by the wrong name. So she hurriedly corrected him, Xiao Bao, you should call Jianshan brother or uncle, not daddy. You can't call him daddy so casually. Xiao Bao clung tightly to Jianshan's neck. He felt that being hugged by his father was even more comfortable than being hugged by his mother. It was as if his father possessed something that his mother did not. Sister Xiao Qian, you're lying. He's clearly my daddy, not big brother or uncle. I want to call him daddy. I want to call him daddy. Xiao Bao pouted and said to Xiao Qian in dissatisfaction. At this moment, Xiao Yu returned to her senses as well. She glanced past Jianshan and Xiao Bao's faces and gradually became surprised. She said, Xiao Qian, why do I feel like Xiao Bao and young Master Jianshan look so similar? Xiao Qian immediately studied them carefully with that. Now that Jianshan and Xiao Bao were together, she did indeed find similarities when she compared their appearances. Xiao Qian immediately became surprised. She said, Xiao Yu, now that you've mentioned it, I've also discovered that Xiao Bao and young Master Jianshan look far too similar. If it weren't for the fact that I know Xiao Bao's origins, I would have suspected. Xiao Qian suddenly felt that something was off when she reached there. The two of them had only heard about Xiao Bao's origins from their master. They did not know whether Xiao Bao's true identity was like what their master had said. Now that Xiao Bao constantly called him daddy as soon as he saw Jianshan, the two of them just happened to look far too similar, like father and son. Xiao Qian immediately felt that something was wrong. Sister Xiao Qian, Sister Xiao Yu, you've actually come with mother to lie to Xiao Bao, saying that Xiao Bao doesn't have a daddy. Actually, Xiao Bao has a daddy. Xiao Bao has already found his daddy, Xiao Bao said angrily. Xiao Bao said angrily. His voice was childish, and he did not hide his displeasure towards Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu at all. His arm around Jian Chen's neck tightened. Xiao Bao, is what you said true? Young Master Jianshan really is. Xiao Yu gently covered her mouth as she stared at Xiao Bao and Jianshan with widened eyes. Disbelief filled her face as her heart churned. Xiao Bao won't lie. Also, my daddy has already given me a new name. It's Shangwan Aojian, Xiao Bao said complacently. Impossible. This can't be true. Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu became stunned. Neither of them dared to believe this. If Xiao Bao's father was Jianshan, then who was his mother? However, as long as they thought about how their master treated Xiao Bao and the motherly love she would show from time to time, they already had an answer. They just refused to believe it. The heavenly enchantress also returned to 3 Saint Mountain. She glanced past Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu with her enchanting gaze and secretly sighed inside. She already knew that Xiao Bao's true identity had been exposed from their expressions. Master, Xiao Bao's identity. Xiao Qian continued to look at the heavenly enchantress in disbelief. She wanted to know the answer from her. The heavenly enchantress avoided her gaze. At this moment, she actually did not dare to make eye contact with her 3 disciples. She seemed very calm on the surface, but she was in a complete mess inside. Xiao Qian, Xiao Yu, Qin, the 3 of you can leave, the heavenly enchantress coldly ordered. She was emotionless. Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu's eyes widened. Although they did not say it out loud, everyone present understood what they were implying. However, what took them by surprise was that their master did not admit or deny it. Instead, she was rather afraid to face them. They had followed their master for so many years, but they had never seen this side of her. Senior Xiao Qian, Senior Xiao Yu, let's leave first. Qin went up and pulled the 2 of them away. Although this matter had not been confirmed, they already had an answer. They just refused to believe it. The 3 of them vanished very soon. The heavenly enchantress coldly stared at Jianshan. Her gaze contained some anger as she asked, "What are you doing here?" At this moment, the heavenly enchantress was indeed extremely furious. Jianshan's uninvited visit had actually exposed Xiao Bao's identity to her 3 disciples. She had no idea how to face them in the future. I've obviously come to see my son. As a father, I have a responsibility to care for my child. Jianshan smiled. He did not care about the heavenly enchantress attitude at all. Daddy, you can stay here in the future. You could be with mommy every day, and Xiao Bao can see daddy every day, Xiao Bao said in a childish voice. Xiao Bao said in his childish voice. His little mouth was almost touching Jianshan's face, and his hot breath tickled Jianshan's cheek. Jianshan's heart was deeply touched when he saw Xiao Bao's hopeful gaze. At that moment, he was actually unable to turn down Xiao Bao's request. He was tempted to agree. After all, he had only learned that he had a son when Xiao Bao was 2 or 3 years old. He had never cared for Xiao Bao in the past, not even knowing that he had a child. He felt like he had let Xiao Bao down. However, Jianshan was a rational person. He knew that he could not do it right now, at least not right now. Xiao Bao, Daddy can't stay with you all day because Daddy still has many important matters to attend to. However, Daddy can promise you that once I'm done with my matters, I'll stay with you all day, all right? Jianshan gently said. His eyes were filled with love. Chapter 12:11. Jianshan had come to 3 Saint Island this time to visit Xiao Bao as well as to give him some cultivation resources. Xiao Bao possessed the innate chaotic body, so the resources he required for cultivation were extremely tremendous as well. They were no less than Jianshan's. When Jianshan first started cultivating the chaotic body, he had the assistance of the sword spirits. They were able to refine ruler armaments into pure, chaotic force for Jianshan to absorb. They assisted Jianshan in his cultivation of the chaotic body, allowing him to make rapid progress. Although Xiao Bao possessed the innate chaotic body, he was just too young and did not have the assistance of the sword spirits to refine ruler armaments in a chaotic force. As a result, he could only rely on heavenly resources and various other resources to cultivate. Jianshan had never considered absorbing the energy of the world to cultivate. Chaotic force was different from ordinary energy. Cultivating just a strand of chaotic force required tremendous amounts of energy of the world. If he just relied on absorbing energy of the world to cultivate, his progress would probably be extremely slow, even if the energy of the world was 100 times denser. When Jianshan reached the first layer of the chaotic body, he had absorbed 100,000 years' worth of energy from Shaoling in Mercenary City. Although the energy might have been something that Shaoling had casually gathered and not something that Shaoling had gathered, it was not difficult to imagine just how much energy Jianshan had used to reach the first layer of the chaotic body. Jianshan had obtained a large number of high-class monster cores from the Heaven's Incense School last time. Now that he wanted Xiao Bao to reach the basics of the chaotic body as soon as possible, he took out 3 Class 9 monster cores, 10 Class 8 monster cores, and a few Class 7, 6, and 5 monster cores from his space ring without any hesitation at all. He also gave them to Xiao Bao along with all the heavenly resources in his space ring. A small portion of Jinshan's space ring suddenly shrank after taking out all these items, but he did not feel pained at all. A 9th Order Monster Core. You actually have a 9th Order Monster Core. Even the Heavenly Enchantress could not help but cry out when she saw the Class 9 Monster Core. Class 9 Monster Cores could only be obtained from Class 9 magical beasts that had reached the level of Holy Emperor. Even a Holy Emperor skeleton paled in value in comparison to Class 9 Monster Cores. They were basically legendary items on the Tian Yuan continent. Even with the Heavenly Enchantress' mental fortitude, she could not help but be moved when Jianshan took out 3 Class 9 Monster Cores at once. What surprised the Heavenly Enchantress even more was that aside from the 3 Class 9 Monster Cores that Jianshan had taken out, there were 10 Class 8 Monster Cores as well. Class 8 Monster Cores were basically extinct on the Tian Yuan continent, rarely seen even once every few millennia. The Heavenly Enchantress began to suspect that Jianshan had robbed the 10 protector clans of the continent when she saw Jianshan take out so many high-class monster cores all of a sudden. This was because no other organization possessed so many high-class monster cores aside from the protector clans in Mercenary City that had existed for over 1,000,000 years. Xiao Bao consumes an extremely large amount of energy when cultivating. These things should be able to support Xiao Bao's cultivation for a while, so I'll give them all to you now. I'll have to trouble you to take care of Xiao Bao in the future. Jianshan placed all the items into a space ring and passed it to the Heavenly Enchantress. Obviously, you would not give all these valuable items to Xiao Bao. After all, Xiao Bao was still a child. If he lost the space ring, it would be a great loss. The Heavenly Enchantress did not refuse. She accepted the space ring without saying anything. Ever since Xiao Bao had obtained the cultivation method for the chaotic body from the sword spirits, she had witnessed the speed at which he consumed heavenly resources. Xiao Bao only needed 2 hours to completely absorb a 10,000-year-old heavenly resource. This speed could only be described as shocking. At the same time, Xiao Bao did not show any obvious changes even after consuming several 1,000-year-old and 10,000-year-old heavenly resources. Not a single drop of energy had accumulated in his dantian, which was more than enough to demonstrate just how tremendous the energy required to cultivate the chaotic body was. The strength of the chaotic body can't be described with common sense. Xiao Bao possesses the innate chaotic body, so he possesses some unique advantages. He won't leave behind any side effects when consuming heavenly resources and refining monster cores, so you don't have to worry at all when you discover that Xiao Bao consumes heavenly resources and monster cores at a rather fast rate. Jianshan explained many more matters related to Xiao Bao's chaotic body to the Heavenly Enchantress, allowing her to gain a rough understanding of Xiao Bao's constitution. Then when will Xiao Bao be able to cultivate the chaotic force you speak of? The Heavenly Enchantress asked. Although she was extremely unwilling to speak to Jianshan, she still cared about her child very much. She had to understand everything that concerned her child. If he wants to cultivate chaotic force, he needs to refine the chaotic body. Right now, Xiao Bao is still in the process of refining the chaotic body, so all the energy he absorbs has been absorbed by his body. Once he finishes refining the chaotic body, he'll be able to form chaotic force. You don't understand the chaotic body, so don't interfere with Xiao Bao's cultivation. Xiao Bao already has the cultivation method for the chaotic body, so as long as he cultivates according to the method, he'll naturally succeed in the early stages, Jianshan said. Jianshan stayed on 3 Saint Island for most of the day before leaving. He spent almost all of that time explaining the chaotic body to Xiao Bao. He also passed on all the experiences and knowledge he had gained from cultivating the chaotic body to Xiao Bao without holding back at all. Only when Jianshan left 3 Saint Island and arrived above the ocean did he remember that he had not brought the Holy Emperor with him. Without the Holy Emperor, he would not be able to rip open a space gate. He was over 10 million kilometers away from the Kingdom of Jessen, so even with Jianshan's speed, it would take him half a month to fly over such a great distance. Do I have to go back and find the heavenly enchantress to construct a space gate for me? Jianshan frowned. His face had already sunk. His relationship with the heavenly enchantress had always been rather subtle, so he really would be rather embarrassed if he had to ask her to send him home. Jianshan sighed helplessly as he stared at the vast ocean. Just when he had no idea what to do, the artifact spirit's voice rang out in his head. He immediately beamed with joy, and without any hesitation, he immediately entered the artifact space. Boom! Before Jianshan could even see his surroundings, he heard a deafening boom as soon as he entered the artifact space. At the same time, a tremendous pressure from the surroundings permeated the space. A Saint-tier battle skill. Jianshan shivered inside. He immediately understood that someone was using a Saint-tier battle skill from the tremendous pressure, and the caster was quite powerful. They had reached the level of Holy Emperor at the very least. Master, your friend who's been studying Saint-tier battle skills has emerged from seclusion. The artifact spirit silently appeared beside Jianshan and said politely. As expected, Jianshan saw a dazzling, golden person hovering 1,000 meters away. A huge, snake-shaped dragon writhed above his head. Although the dragon was made of energy, it also shone with resplendent golden light and possessed a tremendous pressure. At this moment, the giant dragon in the sky let out a dragon's roar before transforming into a golden afterimage and crashing toward the ground at an unbelievable speed. Boom! Another deafening rumble rang out, causing the ground to violently tremble. Thick cracks appeared in the surrounding area, and a bottomless black hole with a diameter of 100 meters appeared where the dragon had struck. The golden dragon did not disperse after unleashing such a shocking attack. It flew out of the bottomless black hole as a golden streak of light before circling above the person's head once more. Chapter 12:12. Jianshan could not help but smile. He was filled with joy as well. He had never thought that newbies, who had been painstakingly working on a Saint-tier battle skill for several years, would finally emerge from seclusion and successfully modify a Saint-tier battle skill that was not suitable for him into a powerful one. This made Jianshan happy for newbies. In particular, when he sensed the powerful pressure in the surroundings, he became even more surprised. Although he had never experienced the Saint-tier battle skill that newbies had modified, he could tell that the might of the Saint-tier battle skill that newbies could erupt with was probably no weaker than the 7th heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor's attack. The golden dragon above newbie's head began to revolve rapidly again. Surging pulses of energy surged out as the pressure in the surroundings slowly increased. Jianshan knew that newbies was not done venting yet. He was about to use the Saint-tier battle skill again. If they were outside, Jianshan obviously would not stop him, but this was the artifact space. This was his territory. He did not wish for his territory to be turned upside down by newbies. As a result, Jianshan hurriedly said, "Newbies, stop. If you want to try the Saint-tier battle skill, try it outside. Don't cause trouble in the artifact space." Haha, Jianshan, the great newbies have finally modified the Saint-tier battle skill that was only suitable for the sea race into a Saint-tier battle skill that only belongs to me, newbies. This Saint-tier battle skill was specially made for me. Aside from me, golden-striped silver snakes, no other human or magical beast can use it. Jinshan, I'll let you have a taste of my Saint Tier battle skill. Take this. Newbies laughed aloud. He was filled with excitement and pride. As soon as he finished speaking, the golden dragon above him let out a roar and charged toward Jinshan as a streak of golden light. Jinshan became stern. Newbies was at the third heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor, yet the Saint Tier battle skill he used actually made Jinshan feel a great pressure. Not only had Jinshan's presence been locked onto by the golden dragon, making it impossible for him to dodge, but even the space around him had become sticky. Not only did he feel like he had fallen into a swamp, but he also felt a heavy pressure from all directions. It was like a huge mountain was pressing down on him, greatly restricting his movements. Jinshan's indifferent gaze sharpened at that moment as a powerful battle intent radiated from him. Although Jinshan was not afraid of Newbie's Saint Tier battle skill, he did not dare to be careless. Strands of chaotic body surged through his body, fusing with every inch of his flesh. Jinshan pushed the advantage of the chaotic body to the limit, forcing the sticky space around him back by a meter. The Emperor armament had silently appeared in his right hand. Violent and destructive chaotic force revolved around the Emperor armament. Jinshan left behind an afterimage as he advanced instead of retreating. He took the initiative to face the charging golden dragon with an unstoppable force. Boom! With a great boom, Jinshan clashed with the golden dragon. Terrifying ripples of energy wreak havoc in the surroundings as golden storms of energy, dyeing the surroundings golden. It was dazzling. The space in the center of the golden world violently trembled, blurring everything. If it were not for the fact that the artifact space was more stable than the outside world, the two of them probably would have ripped the space apart. After a long while, the dazzling golden energy slowly receded. Jinshan's stalwart figure stood where the golden dragon had been. His clothes were rather disheveled, and a small area had even been damaged, but his expression did not change at all. He remained as composed as before. The ground beneath his feet had vanished, replaced by a huge crater that was over 100 meters wide. His feet hovered in the air, not on the ground but in the air. However, the golden serpentine dragon that Newbies had conjured with his Saint Tier battle skill had vanished. 1,000 meters away, Newbies blinked his eyes as he hovered in the air. He stared at Jinshan in some disbelief and cried out, "How is this possible? My Saint Tier battle skill has already reached the 7th heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor. Even a 7th heavenly layer Holy Emperor would need to expend quite a lot of effort to block it. So how did you break through it so easily? Jinshan, what level of cultivation have you reached now? Have you reached the 8th heavenly layer?" Jinshan stowed the Emperor armament away. He did not care about the slight damage on his body at all. With a single step, he crossed 1,000 meters and arrived beside Newbies. He chuckled. "My strength is the same as yours at the 3rd heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor. However, if I use my full strength with the Emperor armament, I should be able to reach the peak of the 7th heavenly layer. I understand the Saint Tier battle skill that I've modified extremely well. I need a sliver of my origin energy to use it, so it's incomparable to regular Saint Tier battle skills. Even if your battle prowess has reached the peak of the 7th heavenly layer, it's impossible for you to block my Saint Tier battle skill so easily," Newbies questioned. He still refused to believe that Jinshan's battle prowess was at the peak of the Holy Emperor's 7th heavenly layer. Jinshan thought about it and said, "Perhaps my chaotic force has gained a slight advantage." Newbies nodded in agreement with that. He said, "The energy you use is strange. Looks like that really is the problem. All right, let's not talk about this for now. Let's go out first. I just happen to run into some problems that I need your help with," Jinshan said. Newbies' eyes lit up with that. He said, "I never thought that there would be a battle as soon as I emerged from seclusion. Let's go. I'll find someone to test the power of my Saint Tier battle skill on." Jinshan shook his head in a rather speechless manner. Newbies really was a battle maniac, actually treating his problems as if he had encountered a powerful enemy. However, he did not explain anything. He left the artifact space with newbies. Arriving on a boundless sea, newbies looked around. Aside from a small island in the distance, it was all boundless sea. Jianshun, didn't you say that you ran into some problems? Why can't I, the great newbies, see a single enemy? Newbies asked in doubt as he constantly looked around. Jianshun glared at newbies in an exasperated manner. He said, I think you've become muddle-headed from your years of seclusion. I'm talking about something else, not a powerful enemy. Then what's the problem? Newbies subconsciously asked. He then looked at the small island in the distance and immediately came to a realization. He said, I understand now. Jianshun, let me, the great newbies, guess. If I've guessed correctly, the problem you're talking about must be related to the heavenly enchantress, right? Before Jianshun could reply, newbies said confidently, stop denying it. I knew it was definitely like that. When I, the great newbies, was still a saint ruler, I actually cowered before the heavenly enchantress. That was the greatest humiliation I've ever suffered in my life. However, she's an expert skilled in soul attacks, and the soul is the weakness of us magical beasts. But now that my strength has skyrocketed and my soul has been refined when I modified the saint tier battle skill, both my strength and soul are incomparable to before. Even if I have to face the heavenly enchantress who specializes in soul attacks again, I don't fear her at all. Newbies could not help but feel a sense of pride when he reached there. He said, Jianshun, let's go to 3 Saint Island. Let me, the great newbies, experience the soul attacks of the heavenly enchantress and regain the face I lost back then. With that, newbies flew toward the island. Jianshun's heart skipped a beat. He knew extremely well that newbies was basically courting death if he went to 3 Saint Island right now. He was not the heavenly enchantress opponent back then, so he was even less of an opponent now. Jianshun quickly grabbed newbies by the shoulder and forcefully dragged him back. He sternly said, Newbies, don't blame me for not warning you. The heavenly enchantress' strength is incomparable to before. I think she's already at the level of the 9th heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor. Her attacks are even more terrifying. Jianshun could not help but think about how the heavenly enchantress had slumbered all the experts of the Protector clan with a single song. He was certain that the heavenly enchantress had only played the song casually back then. If she had used her full strength, she would have been able to kill all the experts of the Protector clan. Even the Holy Emperor would not have been able to resist the terrifying power hidden within the song. What? She's already at the level of the 9th heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor? Newbies paled in fright as he stared at Jianshun in disbelief. A few days ago, she only played a single song casually and defeated a powerful Protector clan. Are you confident that you can still get back at her? Jianshun asked. Newbies could not help but shrink his neck when he heard that. He stared at 3 Saint Island in slight fright, no longer daring to go over. The natural advantage of magical beasts was their tough bodies. Their battle prowess was far greater than humans of the same level, but they were not without weaknesses. Their only weakness was their soul. As a result, as a magical beast, newbies would rather risk his life against someone who could use soul attacks than make an enemy out of someone who could use soul attacks. Newbies, I may have the battle prowess of the Holy Emperor, but my comprehension of the mysteries of the world is still at the level of a 9th heavenly layer saint ruler. I can't rip open a space gate. I need to return to the kingdom of Jessin immediately. So hurry up and create a space gate. Only now did newbies understand that Jianshun's problem was not what he had imagined it to be. It was that he could not create a space gate to return home quickly. After learning that the heavenly enchantress had become so terrifying, newbies no longer dared to stay any longer. He immediately created a space gate as quickly as he could and left with Jianshun. Jianshun and newbies returned to the kingdom of Jessin together before summoning the 4 protectors of the Bloodsword sect. Under the lead of the protectors, they directly hurried to the Bloodsword sect. Ruijin, Blackfish, and Honglian remained in the Changyang prefecture of Lore City. They did not go with Jianshun. However, the 3 of them had given Jianshun a method of communication. As soon as Jianshun encountered an enemy he could not defeat, the three of them would rush over as quickly as possible. Chapter 12:13. This time, they had the Holy Emperor Newbies with them. Originally, Jinshin and the others could have used Newbies to create a space gate to reach the Bloodsword sect, but unfortunately, neither Jinshin nor Newbies knew the exact location of the Bloodsword sect. They had never been there before, so they did not know the exact spatial coordinates. As a result, they could only rely on the four protectors to create a space gate and travel several 100,000 kilometers in one direction before flying the rest of the way. Under the lead of the four protectors, Jinshin and Newbies flew for an entire day and night before finally arriving at the base of the Bloodsword sect. Surprisingly, the base of the Bloodsword sect was hidden in an extremely secluded valley within a desolate mountain range. The valley seemed rather similar to Longevity Valley, where Uncle Shio lived in seclusion. There was a village in the valley, but the only difference was that this valley was even more secluded than Longevity Valley. It was much larger as well. There were over 2,000 wooden huts built in an orderly fashion. All the huts were arranged in a formation according to a certain pattern. The huts were of different sizes as well. The huts at the edges were the smallest, while the huts closer to the center were the largest. At the very center of the huts was a hall constructed from 10,000-year-old ironwood. It was 7 stories tall and took up several tens of thousands of square meters of space. When Jinshan and Newbies saw the village, the entire place was deathly silent. There was not a single person in the huge village, nor was there any farmland in the surroundings. It was very easy for people to mistake it for a ghost village. However, Jinshin and Newbies did not believe that. The two of them had already sensed many powerful presences from the deathly silent village. The strongest of them had already reached the level of the Holy Emperor. "Is this the base of the Bloodsword sect?" Jinshin asked softly as he looked at the village up ahead. "Sect Master, this is the current base of the Bloodsword sect. Basically, all the disciples of the sect cultivate in their huts. They won't come out unless there's something going on. It's very normal to not see a single person in our base for half a month," explained the Grand Protector of the Bloodsword sect. The great Newbies, can tell with a single glance that there are only around 2,000 people in the base. The Bloodsword sect is one of the 3 peak assassin organizations on the continent after all. Although they've declined, they still have far too few people. Newbies smirked in disdain. The Bloodsword sect status in his heart immediately plummeted. "Our Bloodsword sect hasn't declined. We've only gone into seclusion under the sect master's orders. We won't appear on the continent. Although the battle 1,000 years ago left us heavily injured, we've recovered after 1,000 years of recuperation. The people in this base are all core disciples of our sect. Every single one of them is an elite. Other than the core disciples, we also have several tens of thousands of outer disciples scattered across the continent," explained the Grand Protector emotionlessly. At this moment, a few people in blood-red clothes flew out of the village. They arrived before Jinshin in a few seconds. There were a total of 6 people. The person at the very front was an old man in his 70s with an extremely ordinary appearance. Jinshin and Newbies could tell, with a single glance, that he was a holy emperor from the vast presence he gave off. He was at the 3rd heavenly layer, just like Newbies. 2 of the 5 people behind the old man were middle-aged men, and 3 were old men. They were all at the 7th heavenly layer of saint rulers. 2 of them were at the 9th heavenly layer. The vice sect master of the Bloodsword sect, Jiang Wang, greets the sect master with the 5 elders, the old man at the front called out. He bowed to Jinshin. Clearly, he already knew that Jinshin was the sect master and was extremely familiar with Jinshin's appearance. Jinshin could tell from the expressions of the vice sect master and the 5 elders that they were not dissatisfied with him taking over the position of sect master. Jinshin took a step forward and personally helped the vice sect master up. He said, "There's no need to be so courteous, vice sect master. Junior Jinshin is indebted to Uncle Shio for his favor. He has passed on the position of sect master to me, allowing me to carry forward the sect. If Jinshin does anything wrong in the future, please give me some pointers." "You're too modest, sect master." In the Bloodsword sect, The sect master possesses supreme authority. How could I offend you? Jiang Wang replied sternly. He was extremely stern. Jianshan exchanged some pleasantries with the vice sect master before being invited to a small village. The 5 elders and protectors followed behind him silently. Sect master, the people who live here are all core members of our sect. There are over 2,300 people, and the weakest are Earth Saint Masters. There are over 220 Heaven Saint Masters, and there are 9 Saint Rulers. They are the 4 protectors and the 5 elders. As for the Holy Emperor, I'm the only one. The base of our sect is also a powerful killing formation. It's composed of over 2,000 wooden huts, and the control center of the formation is the Blood Divine Hall at the very center. At the same time, the Blood Divine Hall is where the sect master rests. Aside from the vice sect master, anyone who enters the Blood Divine Hall needs the sect master's permission. Along the way, Jiang Wang constantly explained the current situation of the Bloodsword sect to Jianshan. He started from where they were stationed at the beginning and then moved on to the members scattered around. Jianshan finally gained a clear understanding of the structure of the Bloodsword sect. The internal structure of the Bloodsword sect was not complicated. On the contrary, it was extremely simple. The entire organization was controlled by 5 elders, and each of them was in charge of a group. The vice sect master had absolute authority over the 5 elders, and as for the sect master, he was a supreme existence in the Bloodsword sect. He could decide anything in the sect. The next day, Jianshan held a ceremony to formally accept the position of sect master in the Blood Divine Hall. The ceremony was very simple. It was presided over by the vice sect master, the 5 elders, and the 4 protectors. All the core members of the sect had to pay their respects. After officially becoming the sect master of the Bloodsword sect, the first thing Jianshan did was hold a meeting. At this moment, Jianshan, Newbie's vice sect master Jiang Wang, the 5 elders, and the 4 protectors gathered in a secret room within the Blood Divine Hall. They were all stern. Jianshan sat at the very front. He had changed into the special attire of the Bloodsword sect. He wore luxurious, blood-red robes, which gave him a hint of evilness. There are 2 things to be announced in today's meeting. The first is that the Bloodsword sect will return to the Tianyuan continent from today onwards. Jianshan said sternly. Although he rarely gave orders, his words were still filled with an unquestionable dignity. Jiang Wang, the 5 elders, and the 4 protectors rejoiced when they heard that, but none of them said anything. Jianshan continued. The second thing I want to announce is that the underworld sect will be destroyed. If the first matter made the upper echelon of the Bloodsword sect happy, the second matter made them all excited and crazy. In the past few years, the 3 great assassin organizations of the Tianyuan continent had always been fighting openly and secretly. There had been countless small conflicts in the past, so the 3 organizations had formed irreconcilable grievances. 1,000 years ago, the Bloodsword sect had engaged in an unprecedented battle against the Underworld sect and the Yamahal under Houston's lead. Back then, due to Houston's supreme strength, neither the Underworld sect nor the Yamahal were the opponent of the Bloodsword sect. In the end, the 2 organizations worked together and engaged in a battle to the death. The battle was extremely intense. Although the Underworld sect and the Yamahal worked together, Houston was unstoppable. He led the Bloodsword sect to suppress the 2 assassins, forcing the 2 organizations into a desperate situation where they were almost wiped out. In the end, it was the assassins from the Underworld sect and the Yamahal who killed Houston's wife that ended the battle. From then on, the Bloodsword sect vanished from the continent. During that time, the people of the Bloodsword sect had wanted to take revenge on the Underworld sect and the Yamahal many times, but they were unable to do so due to sect master Houston's orders. They could not appear in Tianyuan continent, so they had kept their grievances bottled up for 1,000 years. Now that the new sect master, Jianshan, had finally lifted the ban, how could they not be overjoyed? Sect master, when do we move? An elder stood up and excitedly asked. Since we've already made the decision, we obviously have to move as soon as possible. I also hope that we can avenge Uncle Xiao as soon as possible. May I ask if you know where the underworld sect is hiding? Jinshin asked. Sect Master, the underworld sect's hiding place may be well hidden, but it can't hide from the intelligence hall of our Bloodsword sect. We've already learned about it. We can set off as soon as the sect master gives the order, said Jiangwang. He had been looking forward to this day for a very long time. If that's the case, we'll set off tomorrow morning. Go prepare today. We'll have an intense battle tomorrow, Jianshun said with a heavy voice. Sect Master, how many people do we need? An elder asked. Vice Sect Master Jiang, 5 elders, and 4 protectors can come with me. There's no need to bring anyone below Saint Ruler, Jin Wushuang said. But Sect Master, the underworld sect also has a divine hall. They've been hiding in the divine hall all these years. With the power of our Bloodsword sect, I'm afraid we won't be able to destroy their divine hall, said an elder.